Welcome to FACEHAMMER, and we're going to talk about Mancunian. Am I saying that right? Carnage, the event we just came back from.
Mancunian.
Oh, I don't know. It's like Manx Carnage.
That's fine. That's good. I mean, technically, it wasn't even in Manchester, so
No.
Stockport Carnage happened as well.
That's what normally happens in Stockport on a Saturday night, isn't it?
Potentially, yeah. I think everyone behaved themselves quite nicely.
Yeah. I just mean outside the venue.
I wouldn't know. I was asleep. Yeah, so we attended the Mancunian Mancunian Carnage, run by Alex, who people may know as what's his Twitter handle is
Ghost Arm, I think.
Ghost Arm.
We'll put it in the description below.
We will. I'll pop it in the description. Yeah, great event. Really good atmosphere. And he does have some more coming up. So if people like the sound of what they're hearing about here, then go and check it out. He's got a singles and a doubles more towards Christmas. I don't know the particular dates.
They're on his Twitter as a pinned comment. So we'll put his handle and you can check it out. But I think probably what's worth mentioning is FACEHAMMER GT, which is confirmed for 11th and 12th September. And plan is to do a live show to talk about the rules pack and what we're doing with that based on our experience from this weekend. And tickets will be on sale on Friday the 13th for lucky for some. More details to follow, but so maybe that's a bad day to do it because of the fortunes and all the rest of it.
What's the worst that could happen after the year we've had? I'm sure some people will have questions about restrictions and COVID and whatever. We'll do whatever is appropriate at the time. That's enough of that.
So whatever the legal ramifications are of what they're allowed to do will be what will be enforced. So there won't be any additional stuff on top. So let's talk about the event then. So obviously, like we had you had more hardcore prep than me, but we both had a lot of prep to do. But it was a bit last minute for me. And you got your army done because you can see it on the screen, looking very nice.
Thank you very much. I think you're a bit surprised when you arrived at mine. You gave me the Russ Feel raised eyes. I was just I don't believe you can do that.
Well, it was a bit of that, and it was a bit of like, I guess I'm not going to interact with Byron for till tomorrow. I was like, it looks like Byron's going to be sat in the corner all night. So which was true. Then I realized at about 2 a.m, like, why am I staying up with you? Like, I guess it's solidarity. I guess it was like,
it was. No, it was super nice to catch up, even if I did have an airbrush in my hand or a dry brush in my hand for the majority of the time.
It's nice just to like be at an event again. Been
a while.
Oh yeah, I mean too long really.
And the reason we do the hobby basically, we've been doing a podcast on a hobby that we do for reason that we've not been able to do for a really long time. So it's just awesome to be back.
Yeah, exactly. And this will be a little bit more like the old school style shows we used to do. So people who just know us for YouTube, this will be a bit different. People who've listened to the podcast will know more. Podcast will come. I'm sorry. I know it's still not been updated, the RSS feed. If anyone knows anything about RSS feeds or how to do it easily, please let me know because I'm struggling a bit.
Yeah, join us. They will be coming, and if anyone is an expert, then drop us a DM or contact us via any of the 700 means that are available these days.
Yeah. So I guess we should get into the event. So this was like 70 odd players, right? Something like
that. Yeah, I think it was an 80 player event, and there were a few dropouts, so it ended up at like 72 or 76 or something like that.
And I mean, like we had a pretty good. I think we had a good time. I certainly did, especially on day 1.
Time. Yeah,
it will come off on day 2. But so we're going to run through, like, we've done a list show already, so if you want to see what our lists are, you can watch that video. We're not going to go through it in detail, but I took Ossiarch Bonereapers in Petrifix with Big Cat Energy Arcan the Black, and you took Siggy the Magnificent in Lurid Haze with your Keeper.
Yeah, I took a minimum possible models Lurid Haze with 2 units of a Vanguard. Basically, that describes it pretty well, I think.
Yep, and you can see Byron's models on screen, so you can see roughly what he's got. It was interesting. So I'm just getting up I got the results and stuff, so we can talk about that later. But Okay, so I guess we should just dive straight into like our games. So what we'll do is run through our games and what happened. I've got some photos. There's some video content that you recorded. I did a couple, but it was really sporadic because I don't know if you found it, but the round time seemed very short.
Well, yeah, I mean, people are going to see this when we chat about the FACEHAMMER pack. I think you need more minutes to play Age of Sigmar 3 than you've needed to play any version of Warhammer to date.
I agree. I mean, like I know people say it's a new edition and all that stuff, but it's fundamentally when you add in a tactical, very important decision at the start of every battle round for both players that takes you at least 1 to 2 minutes, even if you know exactly what you're doing, you still double check it.
There's more stuff in your opponent's turn as well. Yeah. It used to be, okay, it's your turn until I have to roll, saves. I'll sit here, or the spells. I'll sit here. But now there's just a bit more. It's you, it's me, it's you, it's me, which is a better gaming experience, but is a more complex one.
Many games didn't get past turn 3. The rounds were a bit short. They were kind of 2.5, and I think you need 3, 2:45 free minimum.
Even when people are super up to date, I can't see being less than 2 hours 45 being a good idea unless you've got an entire tournament of Mega Gargants.
If I was a new player, I would be just taking armies that had like 4 War Scrolls or like 3 big things, and not even worry about.
Even if you're not a new player, I think that's a very sensible idea.
Yeah,
people are going to get annoyed about me waxing lyrical about Mega Gargants at this point, but they are a very good idea for anyone to play with or against. And they are strong, and they are fun.
Any like super simple, fast, quick army that doesn't have a lot of decisions in it. I think as well, if you've got any sort of convoluted hero phase with lots of spells and lots of things to think about, I think you're going to have to be like super quick. I wouldn't say I'm a fast player, but I'm not a slow player, but I struggle to get my games done. And I think part of that is Bonereapers are a grindy army.
Yeah.
So you ended up with like stuff doesn't die, right? It's like
also your opponent reaches you pretty reliably turn 1, right? There's not turn 1 you move.
100% when I run at them.
This it's like
I just push all my models in the middle of the table. We're in combat on turn 1, and then they don't die. So it takes a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the plan anyway. Either events are going to have longer rounds, or players are going to have to consciously restrict their lists. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So we've got some footage from the event, which I'll splice in.
So that was just re-rolled and is very important because I have no chance of killing my opponent's army without some miracles going on. These boys are tough.
But your game 1 was against Mega Gargants, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Thomas Waller, and he was the only person playing Breaker Tribe. Which is the one that you've played, I think, when you played with him.
That is what I took. It was actually the same. It was obviously AOS 2, but it was a similar. I just had 3 little Gargants rather than 2 because you had more points back then.
Yeah.
But in the one unit. But yeah, it's similar.
Yeah, really, really good this. So just to go through it, it's 2 Gatebreakers, one of which is the General, 1 Kraken Eater, and then 2 Man-Crusher Gargants. Those of you who know the book or are quick at maths will realise that that's a very low-pointed list. He is definitely getting a triumph for 1,880 points or something like that. But this is a badass list. This is good. It is strong, and he played it really well. And I thought that his it was a great game for me. I was outclassed, I felt, on the table, and he played it extremely well. So both in terms of the army and the player. But I don't mind losing to stuff like this because it just didn't add any further mental load. It came in and bashed me. I had to remember 3 War Scrolls, as did he, which he knew, off the back of his hand. And the game was great. His deployment also just really set him up in terms of being able to do quite a lot of things and react around me. So I've done some bad pictures.
I've got it up right now, yeah. So
all right, so we got some pictures up. So I'll have a picture up of his deployment. I guess at this point I can't see them. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of his deployment up currently. He had his general front and center with a Gargant snowplow in front of it, and then a Kraken Eater and the other Gatebreaker just kind of sitting on their objectives. And he played a really solid reactive strategy, which is to just pop his snowplow forwards, turn 1. And he used the Triumph where everyone has to run and end up within 3 inches of each other, which is quite a hard one.
Tactic. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
And he gets a bonus,
tactic.
Doesn't he? Because they're all monsters.
They are all monsters. Yeah. So it's a really good start. It's quite a hard one to get off, and it means that, he's got he's got 4 pretty easy ones remaining after that, especially with the type of army that he's got. Not only that, but quite a lot of people, when they do head into that, they aren't, a lot of people can't wipe out a Mega Gargant and 2 normal giants in a oneer. It's a lot of wounds.
What you're doing as well is you're stopping people being able to maximize attacks against the Gatebreaker, or you're naturally going to be splitting attacks, but you're also tripling up the damage coming back at you because you can't get them in isolation.
Yeah, reach 3, it gives you a lot. So you're going to be in range, and you're going to be able to hit people over the top, or if one's died, then you'll just be able to smack right into them or whatever. Also, because he's not gone forwards with his other giants particularly, it doesn't give me long charges easily or anything like that. So it just plays the objective game really solidly. Now, I had Sigvald, who was a good boy, and with a reroll did get a double 6 charge and go in there and do some proper heroic maneuvers, and take down a giant like a boss for Xaxes wounds, which was wonderful. But let's say I didn't manage to take him out. He just then gets to converge on that point if he wants, with 1 or 2 giants having, if we jump to the third picture, just booted the other objective right off into the back corner of the table, which is going to be bordering on impossible for me to be able to reach. For I had an extremely fast army, but if you had a normal army, either you're going to have to teleport to reach that or something else. And the strategy it leaves you open for a load of battle tactics. The other thing that's particularly nice about his list is you've got 3 people who can do best day ever. So you're going to be +1 to wound, +1 save on them, and have an option so you can be +1 save in 2 places frequently. It's got the Triumph for +1 wounds, because you're going to get your Triumph at 1880. And so the army buffs itself really reliably in a couple of important places, or 3 important places, because the small giants don't do nearly as much as the big ones. I just thought he played it really well. He gave himself a load of options, and he ended up bashing me in pretty effectively. Sigvald nearly took out 2 giants, which would have been incredible, actually.
Big giants or little ones?
Oh, big ones.
Oh, cool.
I didn't count the little ones.
I was going to say, I was just hoping it was the big ones.
It was the big ones, and he did an amazing job. I made 2 key mistakes in this game, one of which Thomas pointed out for me, after I'd made it. I could have used a run and a summon from my epitome to reach that way far off objective just by an inch. And I didn't give myself that option, which was silly. That unit would have been very out of the game for a bit, but it would have scored the objective and would have been quite important. And then the other one was that I clocked immediately after doing it. Instead of using the Contorted Epitome spell for reroll 1s on the target of Sigvald, I did Mystic Shield on Sigvald. And the best way to be alive is to not get hit back. And the best way to do that is to kill something. And I needed to kill that model to have a chance of winning the game. And it just,
So offense was the best defense in that situation.
Yeah, completely. And I think because there was quite a bit of stuff going on, he was a great opponent, nothing to do with him. It's just, it's a new game. It was my first game, and I was quite sleepy too. I think you had a moment. I think you had a moment where you didn't do mass too, and I should, it's one of those things that there was what is, in hindsight, it's incredibly obvious. That is by far the best scenario. I need to kill that to win the game. Make sure I kill that, then I won't get hit back. I might get fallen on, but I can deal with that. So yeah, that was they were the 2 key learning points from that game, as well as standing Sigvald on scenery and buffing his save is wonderful. I used Lurid Haze's the ability to buff in multiple places on my list is quite good, and was quite important for me. But I really enjoyed the game. He's a great opponent, and Gargants are just awesome. I cannot recommend them enough for anyone to play with or against.
Of fun. I had a lot of fun playing with mine when we had that little practice proxy day.
Yeah.
The Kraken Eater kick back in the corner is interesting, because against Slaanesh, you've actually got an army that can actually get to it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was doing, because I had the same layout, so one objective I would kick it towards the middle.
He said that he has the option for that one.
For me, it's I want to almost cause the opponent to come into a little bastion of giant,
huddle into the death zone.
I mean, it's much of a muchness, but it's quite interesting to just explain that diagram. So this is the Kraken Eater on the side, and then you're basically kicking this.
It's a no man's land in the corner.
Yeah, so you're kicking it here, and then you'll then push the giant forward because that happens in the hero phase. And then what's quite nice now is before you had to stand on it, wait a turn, but now because you cap at the start, you don't need to if you deploy on it. I don't know. I can't remember what name the mission is, but it's the 5 points, as you can tell. Yeah. I mean, it's quite funny because Alex was doing the wheel, was spinning a wheel and saying like, "What's the mission?" And he'd go, "It's Veins of Gur," and everyone would go, "I don't know what it is," and have to get the book out and like, you know, because whereas before you'd go like, "It's Relocation Orb," and everyone going, "Oh," you know, or what, you know, because everyone knows the mission. So it was quite funny. It was a nice touch. And then obviously like the other Gatebreaker can either go and attack your back one or can go into the support center if needed.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like with Giants, like just that early turn deployment and how you going to play the game is you almost dictate it very early on. So trying to be flexible with that is a good thing.
Yeah, completely. I think it makes a really big difference, and you just make your subsequent choices easier by getting rid of something that's quite a hard one. If you do go exactly how he did. Yeah, I was impressed by it, and the entire game was an absolute joy. So I started with a loss, but on a good note, and Sigvald started off as kill total how you'd hope, which was with a great big giant having fallen pretty much exclusively to him. I think him in 5 bliss barb shots or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean that's cool. So obviously like you lost out on that one, and there was the secondary missions as well. So was that a 40-0? Was it a 35-0? Or
I think it was a 35-5.
Yeah, because you had the secondary that gave you 5, and then if you denied theirs, you got 5. So there was 10 in these secondaries, but they're not like the battle tactics. They're like these weird Alex ones that are based around film quotes by the looks of it to me.
Yeah.
But, which was pretty cool. So I had the pleasure of having a Russ off against Russ Charles. So he's using Beast Claw, as you can see. So he's got his general on a Thunder Tusk there, and then he's got 2 Stonehorns. That's a Frost Lord. I think that's a Huskard. 3 Yetis because he's their battle line, 2 units of Mournfang, a Butcher, and a unit of Trappers, which he forgot to use a lot. But the trap was in the middle, this middle bit here. And what that does is if you go within an inch of it, you take D6 mortal wounds pretty much, and they start off the board. As you can see, this is my turn 1, so I've got I've pushed myself in position, so I've got like my Bastion in the middle, which is 20 more tech with double Mystic Shield with a 5-up ward save against mortal wounds, and a Harvester within 3, which is literally never going to die. Pretty horrendous. I mean, I didn't expect him to charge it, but he didn't, because he failed his re-rollable 4-inch charge in his first turn, which was a bit unfortunate, but he did put one in, which didn't go too well. But I mean, it's like, you know, you watch. I found this when I played a practice game against Carl, and I was using Beast Claw and he was using OBR. He had 30 more tech with a Harvester, but it's like, what choice do you have? You only, the only thing you could do is kill stuff, right? If you can't get around the back,
try and get around the back, or fly.
Well, that's the only thing, really.
Making them fly is a big deal. Like, it's a huge deal. It really opens things up, particularly with their speed. If
you can get like levitate on from the Butcher, maybe you could do that. I'm not sure if you have how else you could do it, because you used to use Thermal Rider, but that's gone. So that's middle bit was push them up. You can see that Arcan sort of sat, and this is generally how I play him. So this objective here, when I looked at the setup, I'm like, well, he's got 1 Stonehorn which could come this way. If that happens, I can form a wall of Mortec and move the Harvester there to form a second wall. This terrain helps me, because obviously it doesn't fly. But if he doesn't do that, then what I can do is basically use Arcan like this and attack that back objective. I know full well his Butcher's probably going to be sat around that terrain piece at the back where it is. So I was like, that's a good place to do it, you know. So You have to excuse my ghetto paint shop skills on this, by the way. So I formed a bastion here, and what I didn't want is I didn't want this Stonehorn coming in here because... So I didn't push this unit up. I could have stayed a bit further back, but I wanted to be close enough that potentially there's this counter charge here into the middle. Obviously Byron doesn't see any of this, so you're just sat there going, I don't know what's going on. And then these are this unit here is like my combat force. So these guys are the ones that are going to come in, and they're going to go in and do the damage once they've absorbed the charge on the anvil. In hindsight, this guy here, probably not a great place to put him, but it's where he was, so, you know.
So it's Russ versus Russ. This is Russ moving against Russ in the first turn. And he's hungry. And I'm scared. I've made a defensive wall. Let's see how good it is.
And that's only because that could have potentially gone horribly wrong if he got a big charge. So you can see here that after Russ has got up on his first turn, he basically went to charge, and like I said already, he just failed it, which was kind of this charge here, which is kind of important. And then this Stonehorn came in with the Yetis. Now the thing is, like, Mortec, they just grind so well. Because as soon as they come in, you just go like, I'll re-roll my saves. I've got my harvester, which can then just return models. And then the harvester, you can see like these little pockets that I've got here. And what that allows the harvester to do is pile into that pocket. And because the bases of a Mortec is less than an inch, he can reach over the top with the bludgeons.
And his attacks aren't bad, are they? They're pretty reliable.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not so bothered about those hitting me, but I don't really want the Stonehorn hitting me. Yeah. So what I've done here, and what was a bit of an error, is actually like Russ could have got to my harvester, because what he could have done is charge here and then pile in here and then hit me there, and that's what he should have done. Killed that. Then my Mortec don't get the return. They're still not really going to die because they're on a free up rerollable.
But making anything half as reliable is a big deal, right?
But it takes off the 4 up after, so after a death save. So obviously one thing that Stonehorns do is mortal wounds on the charge, and with Metal Cruncher he had it twice. That's 2d6 mortal wounds as well. So the mortal wounds, that's why I put the 5 up buff, and the harvester is really key to stopping all that damage.
Yeah.
But it wasn't how it panned out because the charge was failed. You can see here that Russ did actually charge where I said, but he didn't pile in round to hit the harvester. He probably could have actually hit it from where he was. That was after I piled in, actually, and I killed...
Especially with the further reach attacks.
Yeah, he's got a 2-inch. I think it's 2 on both.
No one likes the punches and kicks anyway. That's a lols.
It's almost a pointless rolling the dice, right? I don't know why they're damage 1 and whatever ogres are damage 2. It's just kind of like, what's the point?
They're not made for karate.
They're not made for kung fu fighting. No. So I absorbed that. I killed the Yetis. It was all going quite well, and then I thought, then Russ won the turn roll. Now.
So I've been double turned. My Mortec were stars after the failure in the middle by charges and dice. We'll see what happens at the end of this, but I reckon this is going to be a tough one to weather. He's going to retreat. We're going to get it on camera.
I am going to retreat.
He's going to retreat.
I'm going to retreat.
Look at that cheeky retreat face.
Like the filthy ogre I am.
Look. What he did is he kind of swapped his Stonehorns around, because the other Stonehorn, I took it down to like 1 wound. Mm-hmm. Because basically the harvester, it had like 3 or 4 wounds left, because the harvester went in and just trucked it. I think it did like 4 mortal wounds to it, and then like did another 3 or 4 wounds, because they're not that resilient anymore.
No, people always underestimate the harvesters as well. I think they whatever they do sneakily.
Yeah,
got some shots as well, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit of shooting. It's okay. I mean, it's quite nice if you combo that with the Shrieker for some battle shock shenanigans. Yeah. Then, so basically what he did is he swapped his Stonehorns. So he charged one in, and he retreated the other one out like this. Now, one of the things that I probably would have done is he could have moved the Stonehorn to here, and then charged in the back, and then had a go at the Harvester and the Soul Mason. So the Mortec, you don't really want to be charging them. Like, they're not... I mean, it's quite hard with my army to cover the positional play when you've got spread out like this. And I probably should have been tighter. I should have had like this Mortec here and these Mortec here, so there was no way to get round the line.
You don't need to maximise your attacks hugely, do you? It's not about that. It's just about keeping your blob alive.
Round. And there's actually even an argument to say that he could have maybe had a go at Arcan. Obviously, he's leaving this Mortec unit to then go and kill his general, but his general could have moved over here or something like that. So it's kind of
always like, that important as well. You know, if there's an objective game to win, then sometimes you gotta let something die.
Yeah, and I think there was that decision to make, and like one thing I did find funny is that I had so much relentless discipline it wasn't even funny. So at one point
you just used one of phase because you should.
I had 10, I think, on the first turn. That's how many I got in my hand, and it was like, how I can't even spend this stuff. Like about round 2, I was like, how
not enough phases in the game.
I don't even. If I spent every ability in every phase, I still haven't got. I still wouldn't be able to spend it. It was quite funny.
Yeah.
So when I know Matt does a dial, but I asked Matt to make me like the triple skull token, because I quite like discs, like poker chips. I quite like the feel of it. But that's what that picture was made of. So so that was the kind of where I ended up there, and it was like
you just ground it out.
Yeah, and basically it was kind of it's one of those funny things. It was just like I basically then flew Arcan over the top, took out the Butcher, did the objective where you need a monster in his territory, and later in the game I could have done that, but that one I did monster contest an objective, and then I was able to kill off basically the Stonehorns, grind them off, and it was kind of that was the end of the game really, because the other one that ran off had to like heal.
Yeah,
and then come
it's quite
back.
a good matchup for you, isn't it? Because he doesn't have high quality ranged attacks. Aren't enough vultures in that army to take out the key pieces. And as long as you don't leave something wide open that gets exploited, your guys win that grind every day.
Yeah. I mean, like it's a good matchup for me, and it ain't really gonna go badly.
That scenario that was a bit harder or something, but that one's a solid one too. So
yeah, and like the only thing is can he, with the turns, could he potentially get round me to do the damage? And like if he gets the double, which he did, he could potentially like get round me, kill the key things, and then my Mortec without a Harvester and without Mystic Shield aren't that scary. So if on the first turn he'd killed the Harvester and then the other turn he went after Arcan and killed him, I don't have Mystic Shield anymore, I don't have the Harvester, then the grind as well is a lot better.
Really different. Yeah, I guess he doesn't mind if you are in combat on your terms in your turn, if he's taken out the things that make the grind swing one way. I think it's very hard when you're playing an aggro army though to both forgo a turn of damage, which always feels difficult, if you are going on a mission around the edges or whatever, but also to do that and be like, well, this is the way that I need to win, and if I don't win the priority, I've definitely lost. Sometimes it's needed, isn't it, if you're in a difficult matchup. Shooting armies, people always, instead of just running them to the objective, they're like, but I'm buffed and I want to shoot.
It's like the Yetis as well, like he charged them when they could just pile in.
Yeah.
So like I think he might have done that actually, he might have piled them in, but because he fought with the Stonehorn first, I could pile in the Harvester, and then when the Yetis piled in, I'd still be able to hit them with the Mortec. I can't remember the sequencing, but basically I could still hit them. So whereas you don't really want that happening, because they just die very easily to mass attacks. I know a -1 to hit, but it's much of a muchness really. But that was my game too. It was pretty good.
Sweet.
It was fun. It was nice to play Russ and his nice army and see his little more pots. So that was good.
They were great, weren't they? Yeah, absolutely. So after all of our discussions of Goat Trek, my round 2 involved me having lost playing Goat Trek in Fyreslayers. which is not a good matchup for my list.
I don't have any pictures of this
at all, really. No, I got too excited.
Who is it you were playing?
So I was playing against Jonathan Keatley, and I think he was the one of 2 Gotrek Fyreslayer lists at the event. Can't quite remember, but I thought
Andy Hughes was taking that, but then he used Nurgle. So
when Alex sent an email around saying, "Do people have to Gotrek?" Andy said, "All right, I won't Gotrek." So props to him for that. Yeah. Still did well with his Nurgle as well. But this some parts of this list were really cool. I think there is a discussion to be had about MSU Fyreslayers, particularly in not this lodge, but the movement-y one. I think they're now somewhat more viable than they were. I also think Magma Drafts are pretty good. There's a really cool selection of items and command traits and stuff like that. And he'd made kind of a Magma Draft, which had, I'll read out what it had. I don't know which bits do what, but we can guess. So it's his general, it's 285 points of Magma Draft. Artifact Tyrant Slayer, which I think makes you better against heroes. And he had Warrior, Indominate, and Cold-Hearted Ancient Magma Draft trait. And I think he was debuffing wound rolls, and then also reducing rend by 1. It was like playing against a baby cabbage from the Iron Jaws. I just couldn't do anything to it, so I didn't bother hitting it. And then when you hit it, it puts wounds back on you, which is really scary if you got Sigvald. But of course, the number one thing I was scared of in his army was the Gotrek. So my plan was to run as fast as possible, turn 1 into Gotrek's face, and hit him as many times as possible, ideally twice with Sigvald using the Keeper. And I did that, and Gotrek died, which was wonderful.
Yay.
And then... And then we ended up with, I can't remember what scenario it was, but we ended up with a game that finished, I think, 24-26 or 26-28, like a super close fought game, because I basically just mitched it across to make it so that his pop-ups wouldn't be quite as dangerous, left some stuff stringing out behind me.
And Mitch is just pushing it forward for people.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's named after a player of old from back in the day. I mean, like, that mission, I think it's the one where you roll to see which one is worth more than one.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
so it's like the alpha objective.
We had a really swingy one, and John won each of the priority roles in the entire game, which meant that I was on the back foot for a fair bit of it, and his army was just super reliable. Quickly run through what was in it. I think it was quite a cool list, really. Even if it did have Gotrek. So 10 Volkites.
I don't mind Gotrek so much in a Duarden army. It's when he's in Marafi's army I've got a problem
exactly. With it. 10 Volkites, 10 Hearthguard, 10 Hearthguard, the Berserkers, 15 Auric Hearthguard, Gotrek, a Battlesmith, a Rune Smiter, and a Rune Father on Magma Draft. And it just did what it does, which is has the option to go first for a CP, is reliable, hits hard, pumps out some mortal wounds. He had a mix of broad axes and pole axes, which I think is a pretty solid option. You don't have to go all down one way, especially with the variety of armies you see around now. I think it's not an insensible way to go. And he just kind of did his thing. My Varangard were awful. They just didn't get through or do so much damage, and then they basically got obliterated in return. But we had a really close back and forth where charges really mattered and stuff like that. And somehow my Keeper didn't die instantly, which is wonderful. But the combats, it's just really hard to come out on top of the combats. And I'd already had it in my game 1, but every single game of this tournament, when I got to the end of my army list, my opponent asked me, "And what else?" which became a recurring theme. And my army just
and dreams.
Yeah. I'd be like, "And cogs."
Yeah.
So my army just it did feel a bit small for all of the event. I knew what it was small going into it. I could have taken more troops. I made some concessions for painting, but the Vanguard do the work of quite a lot of models anyway, whether they were 5 knights or whatever else.
Per game they could be 2 units, right? Technically.
Exactly. That's a large reason they were there. Although I think if they're not buffed, that's really far less exciting than it seems. They spiked a little bit occasionally, but they kind of did their duty and tagged on edges and pinned things and stuff like that. But I had pretty favourable landings of the primary objective, but I didn't get the priority rolls, so I was just fighting back for it constantly. And we had a couple of pivotal swings in the middle of the game. I just didn't about manage to come out on top. But I was winning from the point that I'd killed Gotrek, I feel. So that was
another loss on the record.
It was, yeah, the same score, so a 35-5.
Every day is a school day, though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
So. It is. Well, I was learning a lot, and I was learning it fast at this point. So hopefully,
you're being taught in rapid succession by the short hairy
schooled.
Ones. Well, schooled maybe not the best way to describe it, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah, it was a solid game. Didn't quite manage to come out on top, but like really close. And my previous game had the Sigvald combat that was important swung the other way. Had I used my reroll ones buff or any other number of things, that could have flip flopped. So I felt that I'd had two closer games than I was expecting out of matchups that I felt were not in my favour. But I didn't particularly feel that any matchups were in my favour in the event. So.
No.
Yeah, it was a solid game, and I was learning more about Sigvald at this point, and he's a good boy. He's a wonderful boy.
Because you hadn't really played with this arminist before, had you?
No, not at all. I played with one unit of Varan Guard. I've used the Hellstriders. I know they're good. But it was... The other thing that happened in every game was my opponent asked how many points my Bliss Barbs were, and then laughed at me and reminded me how good Lumineth shooting was. Every single game.
Lumineth for only like half the points. No.
Yeah, cheers. I know that I'm 40 points more and 40 points worse in terms of what I do, but wonderful. I'd take him for 80 points, actually. 80 points would be great.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
You'd have a lot of them at 80 points each, wouldn't you? So, apart from the barrier is the assembly, right? Which you hacked with your converted ones.
I did, and I got some nice comments about mine. I love playing with mine. So, yeah, that was good. Also, note at this point, I don't think there's many situations where you wouldn't want to summon Demonettes when you can summon Demonettes, particularly how... Well, you just shouldn't start
because you've got
army.
The Keeper, right? So, like,
exactly
you're
that. Depending on his
going Seekers for maybe, but generally Demonettes, right?
So. Yeah, the reroll charge is a really big deal. Something with that much impact. If you can be going with them first or put them into an opponent where you don't mind taking a few hits, they felt like I knew they were the most solid option going into it, and it kind of my games backed it up pretty reliably at this point. I was doing well at farming depravity, so I'd worked on that, and I got better at it as the games went through as well. I guess as we'll come to.
So that was my game to paint a Sinessa.
Maybe, yeah. She's
I think she does so much in the meta.
She does a fair bit. I don't quite know how she gels with the army. Is a bit like she feels like a yet another piece that needs to be played perfectly in an army that is already unforgiving.
Made might double down. I just like the idea of pointing at that, casting Purveyne from the one corner of the board to the other on that Lumineth unit, that Fox, and rolling 24 dice and doing mortal wounds on 5s because its movement characteristics 24. So
that's that's a solid idea.
Yeah. Take him off.
That's not a bad.
The only reason is just anything now. Just looking for anything that screws Lumineth over, and I'll take it.
Yeah,
gonna get some hate in the comments now. Why do you hate Lumineth? I'll talk about it later on.
We'll talk about it. We will come to it.
I got the joy of playing 2 of them.
Wonderful. So I'd had a goat trick to kill. What had you had to kill in your second?
I had another OGGORS tribe army with Fell Troll allies. I was playing a long-term, old-school tournament player, Sean Gill, and it was great to see him back on the scene. And like he had a very nice converted Fimir army, so he had like Fimir riding maggots.
£7,000 these days, I guess.
Yeah, I did have a bit of a joke with him about that, and we were talking. I was like, "Oh, that's it. You've gone a bit. This is a bit prestige. This army, very nice. I'm surprised it wasn't nommed. Actually, I thought it was pretty cool.
It was a high quality field, though, wasn't it?
It was like I think Alex said there's only like so many spots, but
yeah. I think Fraz as well will ask people to just play their armies in notable positions between rounds because we will do longer rounds, which will make it more likely that people can display them and remind people to do that, which I think is, it's not unhelpful, is it?
Carry that unit into this unit. That unit you get cool.
This was again similar. I created, this is sort of mid-turn. I want to say this is turn 1 because I actually outdropped. Yes, it's turn 1 because I actually outdropped Sean, and I said, "Well, you go first then." And then I moved my army up into like mega defensive, amazing. So basically, I did my bastion here, again, Mystic Shield, Harvester behind, 20 more tech on one flank, anchoring. I know this is coming. This Unleash Hell if you charge. Fell water thing. I was like, fine, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to take it. Took the middle, a little bit squishy middle, but he didn't have Frostlords on Stonehorns. He had Huskards, so I wasn't so much.
They're one less save and one less wound, aren't they?
Yeah, and the save's the big thing. Plus, the guy on top isn't damage free, which is like pretty big. So again, like basically, I went aggressive. These Mournfang, I thought, well, I'm going to charge my Stalkers and my Cavalos into them. I've got 10 more tech backed up here to capture the objective. Eventually, they were able to basically grind those off.
Mournfang have got quite a lot of fairly decent quality wounds, haven't they? They kind
6
of
wounds,
stick around
4
for a bit.
save. Yeah, they're not too bad. They do mortals if you do the whole thing. Now, what I did in my go is I then doubled. And so what I did was I just took the Unleash Hell on the face with the Mortec because I was like, fine. The Harvester charged into the Mournfang, which were on the side, which he ended up killing actually because he's just a boss. And I put the Bone Tithe Shrieker down. Now the reason this was good is because the Fell Water Troggoths are like Bravery 5.
Yeah.
So I killed like 3 of them and they just all ran away for Battle Shock because the Bone Tithe stops you, stops you basically
using command abilities in the Battle Shock phase.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also stops using Rally, stops using Inspiring Presence, and gives me +1 to hit. So I had this the Bone Tithe Shrieker here, which 12 inches. It's the enemy units, so it pretty much hit everything within 12. So it's like being central. And what I also did with it is you can see that I've butted it up against the side of my Mortec, which would then limit the damage or the potential placement of this Stonehorn. I believe I debuffed it with the Mortal Drain Vitality, reroll 6s.
Yeah.
You can see the Stalkers have ground off. I've pushed up with Arcan. I think I did the objective where he's got a capture or contested objective with no monster on it. Then from then it was kind of Sean went in with his Stonehorns, and but the problem is he'd lost so much at that point because the Fell Water Troggoths had gone, which you can see here. The Mortec and then onto his general with the Cavalos, and the Stalkers are ready to countercharge next turn if they want to get the next turn with their rend and damage. So that should dispatch with him. And then my little Soul Mason just in the middle with the Gothizzar Cartouche, because that's what I was talking about with the blocking of the spell to stop that coming in. You can see some close-ups of Sean's model conversions here. You can see they're pretty cool, like Fimir riding maggots, and he's got like the goo between the there, and all the sort of the backdrop of the table and the pen and stuff. But it's a pretty nice. Then basically I ground off the monsters, followed it up, and the Mortec. Although I lost quite a lot of the Mortec, they were still able to hold out with reroll saves and the +1 from Mystic Shield. You see I've still got loads of Relentless Discipline left, so but that was a win for me. That was a fairly comprehensive victory. But I think the problem with like ogres against like my list particular, and I was saying this, that I could have took a catapult, and then that would have watered down my combat resilience. So then, like, maybe not Sean's army, but Russ's army could have concentrated and overran a unit quite easily.
Oh, if he made both of his charges and he had less dudes, it would have potentially caused some issues.
Well, you could just charge a unit that wouldn't have a harvester behind it because of one, right? So you could just pick and choose where you go, and then come into it later. Just be like, well, I'll deal with that later on. Don't need
part
to
of decisions for you in deployment as well. You know, those guys go down, that goes with it. Those guys go down, that goes with it. Each of these survives twice as long as it should. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that means that I don't have any long range threats. But what I did is I just decided I'm going to be like really good at surviving and healing, and I'm just going to accept that I'm not going to have much range because I'm just going to out heal and out survive anything that comes at me.
If someone's impatient as well, you do have your boy in his hat to jump over and go and do a little bit of work, don't you? And often,
no one sees the big hat energy.
They won't. They don't. And I think people behave. You know, let's say you're stuck in the middle. People's impatience often will cause them to put more stuff here, which means that you're all right. Then now I'm popping over. I'm going for that wizard. You know, like Russ's wizard that you killed, and you can just go and send him on a little mission. As long as he's not against stuff that's particularly elite, he's pretty reliable, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good. If you put the +1 attack on him, well, you get up to 19 if you use +3 move.
Yeah.
And what he's really good at is he's good at, just because he counts as 5 models. If someone's got like a hero on a back objective, he can literally just run and Relentless Discipline move and get onto it and just be like, well, I've just caught it and I've just scored it. And I've also done the mission where a monster has to contest an objective and you don't have a monster. I've got another point.
Yeah, he's quite a big deal, isn't he?
He's not. I would go strongly to say if you're not running Catacross, he's auto include.
Sure.
And if you're running Catacross, him and Catacross is pretty gnarly.
Well, we'll at some point we will touch on how useful it is having high quality dispels as well, I guess, won't we?
We will indeed.
Coming up later.
That was a great game. So I'm actually riding high on 2 wins, 35 and a 40, because I didn't deny Sean's mission because he picked kill my general as his mission. I had to kill his highest pointed, so it's like, well, that's going to happen. So because I'm not going to leave him alone, you know. I'm going to kill him because it's what
actually. So you're on 2 wins comprehensively, and I was on 2 losses comprehensively. So looking pretty good for you, and nowhere to go but up for me.
Yeah,
at this point.
Exactly. And
yeah, completely.
Then what did you play game 3?
So I had the distinct confusing experience of rocking up on a low table to Mr. Tony Moore and his mixed Idoneth Bretonnian Deepkin Grail army, which was actually pretty cool and was basically MSU Eels but with Bretonnian models. Pretty clear what everything was. If it was infantry, it was the only infantry in his list. If it was on cavalry, it was Eels, and the characters were the special characters.
I should have guessed this was your game 3 because I've got a little video clip which I'll stick in, and then during the video clip you just decided to start buying gin, and
yeah.
So my army's looking pretty conventional. What's happening here, Tony? And does it always come with its own chalice?
That's the challenge. That gives me reroll 1s.
Amazing. So Tony has got a Deepkin army, but it is themed on questing knights and Bretonnians, and yeah, it's looking pretty funky. Here is stuff that is deployed off the table. Nice paint jobs, snazzy, and yeah, I've just deployed. You go to LA, come to bring me drinks. I think you. I'll tell you what. Well, let's have some drinks then. Would you like a gin and tonic?
Nothing wrong with some lovely gins. I was on a good row of peeps actually. I had some fun going on to my left, some fun going on to my right, and I was having fun on my table. And it was a Eels are still Eels. It's quite hard to get hold of a Deepkin army. They do what they do pretty reliably in several points of the board. And the Magic-y Eidolon, my god, it's healing. Just like I had one round where I went in, I sigilded my way in, turn 1, all buffed up from a board edge, prepared to go twice with the keeper to his magic key Eidolon. Didn't quite kill it. He got some good 5-up saves, didn't get his 5-up after save because of Sigvald. And then she just whomped her way to maximum pretty much in his next turn. Just like that. So I think if you don't re-roll a...
Yeah, if you don't use the cast, you get D3 back, and then you get D3 back for heroic action, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she just bossed away right up, almost to max in a turn. I think I left her with, didn't do the last 3 wounds or something, and then she went like 3-2, then he got a turn and she was just there again. I don't think you even bothered healing the last ones because you just didn't need to. But it was quite hard to get hold of this list. I did pretty well on getting summoning. Some thralls just mullered my Varangard. They've got the bonus against models with...
Yes,
is it thralls? Yeah, they got the bonus against models with more than 4 wounds or 4 wounds or greater or something like that.
Damage 2, is that right? Or
they certainly do. And they just...
No one plays them, so you just don't realise. And then you go and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god, your 10 crap infantry that I can shoot off in a turn just killed 2.2 Varangard before I could hit back.
Wow.
Yeah, so that happened. That was a quite big deal. And then the basically the board just ended up doing this weird thing where like people just kind of concertinaed their way backwards and forwards because everyone moved a million inches and was super flexible or popped on from board edges. And it was just really difficult to keep on top of him. This game, more than any, because of the amount of units on the board and because we were having a nice time, I really would have liked another half hour. Me and Tony ended up kind of working it out towards the end. We rolled a key priority roll and a key combat and stuff like that. And neither of us wanted to be, winning because we had to rush or losing because we had to rush, or our opponent to lose because they had to rush or something like that. So went through it and it literally ended up pretty much as a draw, which is unbelievable in Age of Sigmar these days. But did start my slight trajectory of improvement. And
I think
obviously
they're more likely now because there's no kill points. So, like before it was like kill points and then if you were tied and so, but now it's like, it's just scenario points basically and missions. So
yeah, it ended up being a really tight fought battle. I love Deepkin. They're difficult to play against, but I've got quite a lot of love for that army, especially when it's masquerading around with clicking coconuts and horses. But really fun game. Ended up being very close. The Demonettes went in and did an absolute... There was a couple of incredibly swingy combats where, like, 3 eels did 2 wounds, and then 3 eels did, to the same target, did, like, 14. And there was also the same in reverse, where, like, 10 Demonettes did enough to kill 2.5 eels, and then 10 Demonettes did enough to kill 0 eels with 0 wounds. Really big swings all over. It just made it quite hard to chase stuff, but then his movement... I love the movement of Idoneth. It's like everything's default movement is like 14 or something like that, isn't it? Or 16.
Flies.
Yeah, it all flew, apart from the thralls. Sigvald popped on from a backboard edge and kind of chased people around doing his thing. This was his lowest kill points game. He got 10 thralls, didn't manage to kill the lady by 2 wounds, which is a bit gutting, and she was really important, and then went off and just bopped some characters on the head pretty efficiently, even with them fully buffed up, which always feels like fun. But Tony built his list to have every single character with a 5-up after save, so he didn't have to remember different stats on things, because it's a good idea. But obviously, I don't care about those, so he just went and poked people with a sword. But it was a good one. This is like the realization point of how well you need to play Varangard when your army relies on them. For me, definitely. So I'm gonna have to think about that's my key takeaway for revising this list is getting more out of them, basically.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but a draw. So can't quite remember my exact points on it, but it was a draw, and it held at the beginning of things not being quite so loosey.
That was the learning day. It's probably because you had some sleep. Like,
he
had some sleep.
Might be something to do with it.
That helps.
Or not playing Fyreslayers, yeah.
So after a quick costume change, as we had to interrupt our recording, we're back. It's seamless. Seamless.
Seamless.
And
slightly more haggard and beaten up than I was last time.
A little bit. Most of my house is now missing. So
Russ's house is halved in size, and I've beaten my body up in an effort to remove lockdown dirtiness. So we're both doing some reconditioning.
Yeah, and structural. Yours there. So my game 3 played Liam Alford and against Lumineth and Teclis. As you see from the picture, that's the kind of deployment. And
he's a scary boy, isn't he? Just the idea of facing a Teclis army is pretty difficult.
It is, but like at the same time, like it doesn't. I mean, he's got like the whole portal blow up, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, the good thing about when someone's got Teclis is they've just got an awful lot less models.
Yes,
like, it's just a lot more manageable. And obviously, you can see that I think this is not finished the setup actually, because Arcan's not down. There's also another unit of Sentinels to go down from this picture. So I think. Yeah. Oh no, I think he redeployed the Sentinels. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay, this makes more sense. So the Sentinels ended up being put the opposite flank, as you can see from this picture that I'm showing now. So this is turn 1. So I didn't. I think he went first and decided to try and kind of like I kept Arcan out of range, and whatever shooting and damage he did, I managed to heal it off. Anyway, oh no, I think he teleported the Sentinels. That's why they changed position. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so he deployed them because I was trying to think why are they on the other side of the table, and it's because he used Teclis's teleport. I should forget they could just break all the rules of the game.
Well, they could have moved at double speed or teleported. Or...
Yeah, but they don't fly, so they would have struggled with the terrain on the table. But yeah, so yeah, that was the deployment. Arcan was deployed quite far back. Like I deployed him out of range of basically Teclis's unbind, but also out of range of Sentinels, things like that, because I didn't want Arcan getting killed. I think he's actually out of shot, like just down in the bottom corner. He's there, you just can't see him.
But you didn't want the opportunity to be able to dispel Teclis's stuff.
Well, there's a funny story. So Teclis can do like 1 spell automatic, or 2 on a 12, or 4 spells on 10.
Yeah.
So Liam decided to do 4 on 10. Now I did my heroic action to give my Liege Cavalos an unbind. So when I was sort of waiting for all the phases of like lambent light and re-rolls and all this sort of stuff. And I got a Mason who gets 2 unbinds anyway. And then I basically was like, okay, well, I'll unbind the key 2 spells at the end, which is going to be portals blow up, right? So one of the 2.
Yeah.
So obviously he doesn't roll any dice, so he just gets on a 10. So I think, well, got to roll an 11, rolled my dice, got the 11, shut the portals down. Therefore, the explosion wasn't in range. So yeah, don't care.
It's quite nice. You get 2 attempts at stopping that, which it's like having an 11 plus and a reroll, which is obviously far better odds than just an 11 plus.
And I sort of didn't. I kind of thought he would have just picked 2 at 12 to do portals blow up and then like do less.
Well, this is something we've already discussed about, which is picking definite things that can be achieved over things that are likely to be achieved. And what's really important, doesn't it? I spoke about it with my Sons of Behemat game, and you also mentioned it to me at the event, perhaps in a game that we have yet to cover, where you picked something that 95% of the time was achievable, so it was easy, whereas you could have picked something that was absolutely definite.
Yeah, because Arcan wasn't in range, so he would have got them off guaranteed. One of the spells I think he did with Teclis was the teleport on the Sentinels, which he could have just deployed there knowing he's going first. I don't know why, because he moved them from one side to the other, but my deployment's symmetrical, so
unless you're dummying or something, it's not particularly purposeful.
I don't know. Maybe there was. I don't know what the thought process. He might have had an idea. I just don't know the army that well to know why. I think it could have been good if someone had like a threat they deployed on the opposite side, then you swapped. But I didn't do that. I just had a symmetrical force. So
quite a nice thing in the scenarios where you end up rolling for objectives. You can look like you're covering more of the board than you are, and then bet heavy on the middle and one side, which often is a fairly legit strategy. Games like, particularly with a fast, flexible army, so I could see that being an advantage potentially.
Yeah, so my turn, I got into. He was playing Sire, so he could do AA for quartz and stuff. So basically, just couldn't kill anything. And he had the protection spell up from Teclis on the first turn. I think that's the other thing he did. And so basically my turn, I charged my Kavalos and I got a big charge on my 20 Mortec into his army. Didn't realise stuff like Shining Company and Aether Quartz and all that, because I've not really played Lumineth before. Especially not... Yeah, I haven't, actually. This is my first time. And like I was like, okay, so they're -1 to hit, and then they get a 5-up ward save, then they get +1 armor save, then they can all out defense. I was just like, so basically I'm not going to kill anything, right? So he only had like 5 Dawn Riders, and I just think I killed like 1 with 20 buffed Mortec. And a
like a Mortec versus Mortec.
Yeah, the only difference is I don't have like 30 guys that do mortal wounds and re-roll everything. So yeah.
Yeah, mortals will do it, won't they?
At range, yeah. So, and I don't have Teclis, but anyway. So not bitter. So you can see here I've got this line charged in here. I wasn't sure, but I wanted to tag the Sentinels because I went to the Warden, sorry. So because basically I was like, well, I'll take the objective and I'll just gum it up. Now you can see on the other side I've got my Stalkers here. And the idea here is I was sort of going, if I get the double turn, but I was thinking about the what I wanted to do was get the Stalkers into the Sentinels at the back. I then put Arcan in range of Teclis, so this is 30, so he can then unbind.
You're more concerned about stopping his stuff than getting off your stuff.
Yeah, because I was cast out of range, so he couldn't unbind me.
Then you just popped in.
Then I moved forward, and then so I could then unbind if he got the turn. So it was, and I figured, well, I'm going to have to get close at some point. So obviously, like in Liam's go, he could have moved Teclis into Arcan range, but I had Arcan so far back that he would have been very exposed.
Yeah.
And as soon as I gummed his line up with the Mortec, I was like, well, what I can do now is go up the sides and sort of try to get the harvest. I think he shot one of the harvesters off on the first turn, which is why, he did. He shot one off, so which is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay. And the mission was I put my Soul Mason quite exposed in the middle of the table. Mm-hmm. And the idea of that was if you shoot at him and kill him, then I had the mission that... Because I looked at his army and thought, what's going to kill him is probably the Sentinels.
Yeah.
Therefore, it wastes his unit shooting because he's probably going to double down to make sure he dies.
Yeah.
And then he's not shooting my units. And then it gives me my objective, which is by Grabfar's hammer, is to kill the unit that kills your lowest pointed hero or your first hero. Yeah. So if he killed
it's
him...
It's one of his least defensible units, and it's not a key piece for you necessarily.
And because I've got the board position, like the Sentinels, he can't really get them in range unless he teleports them. But then if he does 4 spells on a 10, because he's going to want to do the blow up and he's going to have to do the portals and all the other stuff. If he does that, then I've got an 8 to unbind, well, a 9 to unbind with Arcan, which is a lot easier than 11s, So I was thinking, well, if you give me the unbinds, then I'll, it's trying to like make it a little bit harder for him. Turned out it worked, which is always nice. So basically, what happened here is he shot off my Mason. I ground off the sort of the cavalry, and then I made sure I kept the 2 objectives. Arcan then kind of scooted round away from the Sentinels. But what I did is I managed to, which is not very clear in this picture, but essentially in his go, he then tried to do 2 spells on a 12, but because Arcan was in range, I then went to an unbind and I rolled another 11, but Arcan gets +2, so that unbound him as well, which was quite funny, because on the first turn he did 4 on a 10, and I said, well, you should have done 2 on a 12. Next turn he did 2 on a 12, but I had a guy with +2, then I rolled an 11, and it was like, well, it just kind of compounded it, and then...
helpful it was in a game where you're against a hard army for some stuff like that to happen.
Yeah, just not on the key nice, spell.
It's demoralizing for people, isn't it? And it can cause them to lose their head a little bit, I think.
It definitely got into his head. Fundamentally, though, it doesn't really matter, because whatever little chip damage that does, Arcan basically heals it on the key units. So you've got a deathless save. You get to like put 3 wounds back in 4 units you pretty much, as long as Arcan doesn't die, you pretty much just go, I don't care about the chip damage. And because he went first, I was always getting the chance at a double. And if I got a double, then it would have been harsh. I didn't.
Yeah.
But we only got to like turn 3 because time limits. But basically, I ended up with my stalkers going in the flank with +1 damage, +1 rend into those sentinels. Took me 2 turns to grind them off. So I went on my turn 2. By the end of turn 3, they were dead. Yeah, just double A for quartz in it. -1 to hit, +2 save for nothing. Just on archers.
On flimsy archers.
With my combat unit. Yeah. And I had to also give up 10 more tech because I charged the 10 more tech that were on that side in a snake, and I tagged the archers through the gap. And what that did is that meant that they unleashed hell on them, which then meant the stalkers could go in unhit.
Untouched, yeah.
And, you know, they had a rerollable charge, so because I used their ability hunt and kill. And then basically he cleared off the Mortec with his charge of his Arch Regen. It's really funny. There was one Hecatos left in the unit, like the champion. And TECLIS was about 4 inches away. And he did his movement and he moved TECLIS 9 inches away from him. And I was like, it's one dude. Come on, charge him. What's wrong with you? Like, come on. But then he killed him anyway. But it was like I thought it was funny. TECLIS running away from one Mortec.
One little champion, yeah.
And I was giving him a load of grief about how I think TECLIS is a mega nerd and I don't like him. And I was saying that Arcan's got big hat energy and he's the real player. His hat's better. He's better than TECLIS. He's got a bigger hat and stuff like that. It was just silly, but. I ground off the Sentinels, which got me my mission. Also, because Liam won the turn into 3 and had to take it, I took the objective off that was the closest to him, which then meant the 2 here were kind of secure. So from an objective point of view, is in like actual missions, I was winning on points. So my army doesn't kill a lot and it doesn't die, but it is very good at scoring.
As long as it's in the right place.
Yeah.
You're good, yeah.
And like what I realize with Bonereapers is you probably want choice of turn, so you're always in a position where you're on a chance for a double because you don't care that someone goes first because you're still
but you do care if they can go twice,
but you care that you can never get a double turn, so anyone who's particularly maneuverable you can never catch them.
Got you. Makes sense. And particularly Lumineth because they're ultra maneuverable.
Yes. Yeah, which will not this army, but the one I played in game 5, 100% would have been nice, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately.
But a solid game for you against a pretty intimidating matchup.
Yeah, I was pleased. I didn't think I was going to win against Lumineth TECLIS Sentinels. When I looked at the list going into the event, the only army I didn't want to play was Lumineth.
Yeah,
any of the Lumineth, and I managed to end up playing 2 of the 3. So yeah, that was brilliant. But I was happy with how I played in that game. I thought I did good decisions on where I went and what missions, what objectives I picked, like battle tactics, and I managed to get my secondary mission and deny the secondary mission, which was
a full 40.
Yeah. So it was. I dropped 5 points on day 1, so I was on. 80, 115 out of 120.
Nice.
Which then didn't go in it very much anymore. I got a message from Carl who said that there's a Facebook group on OBR that were rooting for me, which I thought was cool. And apparently someone said that I could win with a ham sandwich or something, which I thought was a great quote. But no, I had fun. Liam's army looked great as well. You know, it's nice to. It was nice.
It took him a year to paint. He said in a comment on YouTube. Yeah,
it was one of the nominees, and I thought that it's interesting as well because it didn't feel like, I know Lumineth can feel very like polarizing and kind of very non-player experience, but I didn't feel that in this game at all. Like, to be honest, like it's tough and there's a good magic phase and there's a lot of negatives and the Sentinels are scary, but it was manageable and it didn't feel like you know, yeah, I rolled two key unbinds, but I thought the shrine seemed ridiculous. Like when I asked him what it did and he gave me all the rules, I was like,
His what, 5 things. Really? You're like, which one does it do on what roll?
No, it does all of them.
And they're like,
every turn.
All of them. Don't roll
free.
Anything. Just exist.
And I was like, okay, the shrine's a bit good, isn't it? So
there's not another terrain piece in the game that is, you know, anywhere near that in terms of utility.
No, hands down the best.
Like, it's more than twice as good as any other terrain piece. I'm not hugely familiar with all of them, but I'm pretty sure that that's a safe thing to say.
Yeah, and the good thing about the OBR is he couldn't pass the battle shock on to me because they don't take them.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, because he had a Kevlar, because if you might have seen in the earlier picture, I had my Bone Toe Shrieker up to try and. So the idea was to hit both the Sentinel Wardens and the Dawn Riders to do damage till they took battle shock, but he was able to basically pass the battle shock off because you can't use Inspiring Presence, but you can still use the Kevlar ability. So it's like it didn't really do anything. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize how resilient they would be, to be honest. I thought I'd go through them. So it's nice.
Yeah, they're not as fragile as you'd think. I don't think
100% not. I think Wardens are very good. Like I think people kind of underestimate how good they are, particularly when they're stood in front of Sentinels.
Just for sticking about.
Yeah, you put them in a line, you go into them. They can all hit you because they've got reach. You get negatives to hit. They can still do mortals on 5s. If you lambent light the unit and they go into you, then you're re-rolling anyway. Yeah. You could be aggressive with them. And then also, if you've got Sentinels nearby, they can unleash hell or whatever charges them. So it's like, it's very scary.
You can also, with the entire book, you have that option to double something's move, which is already fast, and that gives you a better chance of being able to have a longer arm than your opponent as far as damage threat goes. So
yeah, and
strong.
The other, I saw a comment from someone saying they break all the rules, they cheat. Like, you know, don't need line of sight, you know, don't need to not, you know, it can feel. I think some of the stuff's a little bit underpointed, and some of it's probably a bit overpointed. And if they got balanced, it wouldn't feel as bad.
Battle line wasn't quite so effective.
By no means,
it's not attacked, is it?
Was Liam's army like min-maxed at all? Like it was quite a nice balanced army, so it didn't feel ridiculous.
He's picked it for variety and aesthetics, hasn't he? And then painted it. Very
I mean, it looks. It's what you would take in a. He's got some Dawn Riders, he's got some Wardens, he's got some Sentinels, Teclis. He's got the Regent, which is actually quite good for the Empower D3 units. You know, the Kevlars, and then he's got a Bolt Thrower kind of tucked in, which I kept forgetting because it was hidden behind the rock dildo in the middle of the table. I just kept not seeing it. And I was like, oh, he's got a. Well, I know it's not a Bolt Thrower, whatever it's called, you know, ballista or whatever it is. But yeah, it was it was interesting thing. So
end of day 1, you're 5 off maximum on 115. I am trying to have 15 or whatever. I'm definitely not far off maximum. I'm not far off minimum. So yeah, you're going to be on the top tables day 2, and I'm going to be much lower down on day 2. So
yeah, and because you weren't having a good one, but to be honest, I was surprised you could even function with how tired you must have been.
Yeah, well, I'm loosely. Let's use that term loosely.
Are we allowed to talk about you falling asleep during the quiz?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you would get all like.
I don't care. I fell asleep during the quiz, and I was so tired that I went into dribbly sleep and stuck my face to my arm. So
yeah,
it was.
Me and Russ were like trying to get answers to something, and then we both were looking at each other. I don't know what it is, and we both turned to look at you to say, "Byron, what do you think this is?" And you just there dribbling on your arm, and I was like, "Oh, that's not going to help us."
Tony Moore kindly bought me a Vindaloo, which I chose to try and wake myself up.
Yeah,
and I ate half a Vindaloo. It was a really hot one. I thought, like, that'll do the business, and I just went to sleep.
It just turned your communication into like just going.
It was it was really nice hanging out for the bit where I was awake though. Had a really good time catching up with Alex and Russ and Tom and a load of other people as well. So yeah, it was really nice. But then I fell asleep.
We were reminiscing about old times when I met Alex. Must have been 2000, 2001 at GT's when I went there when I used to work at Games Workshop in retail as a part-timer, and we went up and we used to play the GTs and the heats must have been 6th edition, and I remember sitting at my first tournaments before I got into the independent scene. I was sat in the bar with Paul Brown, another Ben Johnson, a different one, same name, different person, Neil Peckett and Alex and me, Paul and Jake from the Swindon Store would be hanging out with them, and it was weird. We were talking about that and looking at the ravages of time that's afflicted us and stuff like that. But it was nice to catch up because I don't get a chance to speak to Alex much, so it was nice to sort of do it. And the quiz was extremely well done. So it was very good professional. Job, even the point where he started singing songs in the club style, which I thought was very impressive. So pre-recorded, of course, but still good.
He's a good entertainer, isn't he?
Yeah. So I mean, I one of the things that should be said as well, like to run an event on your own
solo,
like that's pretty impressive. To make sure everything goes smoothly, even the patent entries were done, they were put out, any queries and stuff, there wasn't a lot, but got handled, and you know, nothing ran over time. It was.
He also managed to remain pleasant when people are asking questions and hassling him for results at the end of the day, which I felt the need to step in and just say, like, leave him alone.
Yeah.
Poor man.
It was nice that I did see the Alex eye roll at some people, you know, the look, and you're like, oh no.
You did a more impressive job than I could or will at FACEHAMMER in similar positions. So
I'm sure I'll get grumpy with people when I'm on the admin desk because you see my multitask face, so you know what I look like. So
I'll be fine if you're doing your multitask phase because that's just ignoring whatever they're doing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the problem. So
we went back, had some nice food, had a nap, got some sleep, and then we woke up fresh as daisies for day 2 for some nice soft matchups for either of us. So you were rolling into Seraphon?
Yeah, so
Seraphon.
Table 1 Seraphon.
Nice forgiving.
Coalesced Thunder Lizards, I think. Lizards. Big chunky dinosaurs. There you go.
Yep.
And you had a really easy, because you were down the bottom table, so you weren't going to play anything like Tzeentch, were you?
I faced Troy Harding's pretty effective Tzeentch gun line.
It was Tzeentch. You won it, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was Tzeentch. I think we were on table 30, and I faced 3 units of 10 pink horrors, 6 flamers, 3 flamers, 1 exalted flamer, Lord of Change, Changecaster, who has the best command trait in the world, as far as I'm concerned. I'll talk about that in a second. And he was in Change Coven, Eternal Conflagration. So, yeah, it was a properly tooled up shooting army, like a really a good one, a very, very effective one. And I think part of the reason he was down there is he'd faced the 1 KO army at the entire event.
Yeah.
And his army falls apart if you take away key pieces, but he generally puts those key pieces behind 3 10s of pink horrors, which, you know, is more wounds than any other army.
Enough
has
for
in the
any
game.
Army that can't get through it, because it's like 50 wounds a unit or 60.
Yeah, I think it's about 180 wound army effectively. I think something like that. Also, his characters do so much. My God, I don't know how anyone playing Tzeentch would ever resist not trying to go double Warlord and just plowing the items and command traits in there. So good. So he had everything that's in the list. He had a little dude on foot who was giving people like +1 to wound, I think, and opponents -1 to wound or something like that. And then the ridiculous one was the Changecaster, the Heralded Tzeentch. So he had Coruscating Flames, which is command trait, which I believe is reroll hits within 9 until your next hero phase for 1 CP. Something like, just my God.
Sounds good.
Like, yeah, doesn't feel good at all. But really, really interestingly, we'll come to this. I had an amazing game. He was a sick opponent. I had a little bit of luck with some things and some awful luck with other things. Again, the Varangar just didn't stick around quite as reliable as I thought they would initially. They seemed to go in, lose 2 dudes, and then have 1 dude stick around for longer than the 2 dudes. Which I don't know why, but that seems to be a thing. But yeah, his list was just really scary for shooting. But I think something that his list encourages is it's really hard to forgo any of your shooting when it's that effective, because you're at +1 to hit. Some of this might not be correct, but it's largely correct. +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and then re-rolling hits. Everything gets rend 1, I think.
Right. Because it's in the eternal conflagration.
Yeah, so even the pink horrors are getting it. But what that means is that you're really... there is a battle between whether you muller something with shooting or you put your dudes in the right place. I think it makes the decision much harder, because you're not just like, well, I'll put my dudes there and, they won't do 3 wounds to something. It's like, I won't do 9 wounds, but I'll stand my guys in the right place. And I think that's a much harder thing to make yourself do, or it makes it less obvious what you should be doing, what is the correct decision.
I think,
which is normally playing for scenario.
With AOS 3, you have to slowly catch your monkey.
Yeah.
Because basically you need to get your battle tactic, and you can't score 9 points in a turn. I think one mission you can, but most it's do you have more than your opponent? It's 5's your max. Whereas in the old edition, you could score nothing for 2 turns, then 9 for 3 turns. That's fine.
Yeah, that's how I used to play as well.
You don't now. It's armies that are a bit more I think that's why KO struggle a little bit, because they, and maybe this army as well, because it needs to shoot things off and not really play the mission. But by not doing that, you kind of get behind, and maybe you can't catch up. It's
it's a properly tricky one. So I went first, and I went, unsurprisingly, guns blazing, all out aggro. I think you don't know if you got a picture up. But you had kind of a defensive D, and I knew that I was really scared of the Flamers in particular, because they can just mauler my army. If I can touch them, I can kill them. But if they touch anything with their shooting, it's going to be a real issue, unless it's buffed Sigvald or Varangard.
Did you Lurid Haze Blissbarbs them?
Did I? Oh no, I didn't. They've got run and shoot, which was enough to get them up into a solid position. So I Lurid Hazed 1 unit of Hellstriders and Sigvald on his right flank, my left, as the photos taken. They were there to kind of back each other up. But the issue with his army is that my armies are particularly resilient in many places, and the horrors just grind really effectively, because my units have
horror shooting scary for you.
Yeah, so my Hellstriders got a 4-up save, and they got 10 wounds. They're -1 to hit in the first round of combat. They're really good for their points. They're incredibly good for their points. And normally they can go in and tag something on a corner or whatever, but of course you kill horrors, and then suddenly they're surrounding you with their replacements and stuff like that. So it's more difficult to limit damage back, and I knew it was going to be a very, very tricky game. So my priorities were to buff the Blizzbarbs to try and take out as many of the unit of 6 Flamers as possible. Try my utmost to remove some things in terms of combat to give me one chance. He'd made a mistake, and his little pivotal guy in the middle was a ball hair within 3 inches. If I could do some shuffling in the combat phase with the Keeper's 1 3-inch weapon, which only has 2 attacks. So I best day ever the Keeper to try and make it more reliable, and to also give it a chance to survive. Rock that into the middle. Sigvald went on a very safe point on a flank. The issue with him in this matchup is that he hits really hard in the turn he charges, but he's not going to break through horrors. So at that point, you're either looking at running away or hitting things. He's not going to die unless he's the target of shooting, which I was trying to encourage just to make him split and give him some more difficult decisions. But essentially, my Keeper, 1 of the 2 attacks went through and bopped his dude on the head with a 6, which is a straight 5-up mortal wound. So the dude just left. And that was the guy who was giving him +1 to hit or +1 to wound, I think, within 9 inches, the little dude on foot. So that was really helpful. My 10 Blissbarbs to a wound wiped out the Flamers, even though he used 3 fate dice on their saves.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, I put +1 to hit on them. That was an absolute priority for me, because I was just so afraid of his potential. I needed to take something out. There had to be a really good reason for me to go first, and that was to take something out that was going to punish me later on. And then the Keeper and the Hellstriders, I just tried to do my best to tag multiple units to stop him from being able to coalesce on my stuff. So I had Sigvald, Heldstriders, Varangard, Keeper, Varangard, and he had a load of stuff that was going to be spread out.
All right, so end of my turn 1. No one made their charges apart from Sigvald and the Keeper. The Keeper, however, did get 1 wound through to kill the little linchpin who was in the middle, which is not unhelpful. And now I just have to deal with your battle line. You're going to wipe me off, aren't you?
A lot of my buffing is gone, so I'm a big unit of flames is gone as well.
Let's see how it goes then. I'm expecting to get shot to death at this point.
The Bliss Barbs, the moment they got shot, they just died, like in a heartbeat. After he'd asked me how many points they were with their 5-up save on their terrain, I think he had like 18 wounds to them or something with 3 flamers. So they
because he had a 6 and a 3, you shot the 6 off, but didn't kill the 3.
Yeah, not a chance of touching them, and they were still so effective. So they plowed their way through that, and then basically it was all down to the grind. And I think this is where I started playing better, possibly because of more practice with the army, probably because of having doubled my sleep total for the 2 nights prior. I doubled in the 1 night before this. So I had a solid 10 hours of sleep, or nearly, and I feel I was playing a bit better. Yeah, I spread around my saves to the best of my ability, and also the Lurid Haze one is a bit more flexible, and it allows you to be saving in multiple places. Mystic Shield as well, and Best Day Ever. So my army...
Did you kill the Lord of Change?
Not until the very end.
Because I got in the picture, looks like he's like on one flank, and he's got like some demonettes in base content. I don't know if you like... It might be a pile, I don't know. But...
Summoned and ploughed some demonettes into him, and I used I think I used a CP on not taking a battle shock with him just to try and keep him over there.
He basically like come out of his pocket, to use an American football analogy, on the run. So the quarterback come out of the pocket and then you summon demonettes and got him. Yeah. Okay, so because I was trying to work out why he was on that flank, but your models are there, and it looks too ordered to be a dead pile.
Yeah,
and I was like, why is the Lord of Change out on the side like that? I don't know why he's not just sitting there. Maybe it's because of mission, right?
Yeah, so I sent them in.
So, round 3, lost priority. Keeper is still alive here. Sure, she's going to get some love from the army. Lost a unit of Hellstriders here to some amazing shooting. Sigvald's still alive, kind of locked out of stuff. Lord of Change is over there, fighting some demonettes that I summoned, and then we've just got some Varangards who are looking pretty lonely holding up the fort against the world's best shooting contingent. So, we'll see how this goes. Objectives have been really in my favour, though. One's landed here, one's landed there, one's landed there.
Sent them in his direction and just tried to hold him there because I didn't want him to be doing his extremely effective damage.
Did you bring it down when you killed him to get the point? Is that how you... did you do that, or...?
I can't remember. I was just mostly concerned with trying to keep everything split open. It's
quite interesting because, like, you potentially, with Lurid Haze, you can score that mission where you need 2 units in their deployment zone, like, really easily.
Yeah.
Like, straight away. So, yeah, man.
I used the... in this one, I used the 2 cavalry units in combat before game 2 or something like that.
That was Alex's special secondary.
Yeah.
But I thought this was, like... Because you said the... what I mean is the battle tactic, not Alex's special missions. So I was just thinking out loud because I was thinking it's quite an interesting dynamic with the army. That's quite an easy secondary, though a lot of other armies struggle with it.
Yeah, there's a few that might have a real advantage with, and it's normally to do with movement or cavalry or stuff like that. A completely massive turning point in this game was my Keeper remaining alive on its 1 wound that it had extra because of Oil of Exaltation, or whatever it's called, because of me basically ploughing, half of my resources each turn into keeping her alive against the absolute, battery that was...
What you're saying is that she didn't go in dry, she went in wet, which saved her.
Yeah, she went in wet, that saved her, and... Best Day Ever turn 1 on the Keeper, particularly with her move, means that you can pop her in and she's just that bit more reliable for damage. So she doesn't do nearly as much damage as I'd like, but she did She did what she needed to in this game, and then all the resources were just into her surviving rather than her killing anything. So she survived on 1 wound, and that literally won me the game. She survived on 1 wound, ran away, healed, and it made me really think about, I think in Godseekers, there is a item or there's a trait that gives you retreat and charge.
Yeah.
I think that'd be tasty as all hell on the Keeper.
Yeah, as long as you can stick around.
Not die.
But you wouldn't have had the oil, and you would have been dead. So
yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's quite interesting because like look at the photo, it looks like you've almost been hammered, but the point is that he hasn't really come out as deployment zone. So
no,
with the mission,
everything was in combat.
You're gonna score because you're gonna pin him in early, and then just killing the flamers really reduces the effectiveness as well.
Yeah,
you know, especially that the Vanguard being in combat, they have to shoot the Vanguard with the
exactly
so
that's what they were there for. And the Hellstriders were as well, where they gave him the ability to have like my butt on an objective while still having 4 models able to fight some of the horrors in one corner, and his flee paths were restricted because there wasn't much of me, but where I was, I felt was more in the right place.
Was this game 4? Was this game 5?
It's game 4.
It was. I was just trying to work out, because you've got your objective tokens, so I was trying to work out why they are where they are. I don't know if you use them for something else, but that's a bit bizarre because it.
Oh, it might be cogs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to work out why they're sort of in different places, because I can't see an objective marker on there. So
if it's central, I was a soppy sausage and forgot my cogs, so that's my cogs, which was useful for me. That made me make a couple of my charges. So did loads of work. But yeah, really good game, super close. Like I say, if my keeper hadn't survived on 1 wound, then he would have absolutely stomped it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, seems fairly legit.
How about your nice soft table 1 affair then?
Well, it was fun. I played Mike Smith with Seraphon. I always find it a bit difficult when you don't know an army, and I'm traditionally like fairly shit. Sorry, Mike Stewart, I should say. I'm fairly shit in the morning on Sunday because I'm kind of relaxed and chilled out, and I'm like very floppy, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm a bit more sort of chill.
Yeah.
So he's named his characters, which I'm not going to go into that, but what are you doing? So he had like a Skink Chief on a Stegodon, and then Slan, and he had a Star Priest, and then another Priest, little heroes.
Best 80 points in the game, in my opinion.
Oh, ridiculous. 30 skinks, with 2 units of 10 skinks, some salamanders, 2 bastillodons, in Linebreaker. So basically it was kind of, it was good. I gave him the first turn. I kind of thought, well, you go first. I'll just get some photos up, hang on. You can see like he's got his like nuke temple here. And with all his characters in, and so what he basically did is he got like a thing where you can run, shoot, and charge, move the sallies up and he put it all into my harvester on. And when you lose a model within 3, you can, on a 4+ you can heal, but I healed the harvester rather than put the Mortec back in the unit.
Okay.
So it kind of like, we was like, because he's damaged in the hero phase, and then he killed, and because the Mortec died at the same time because it was a blow up from the terrain. Yeah. I then healed the wounds that the harvester took when the Mortec died, rather than put Mortec back in the unit. It died to the wound, which was bring it down, which was his mission. I was like, well, okay, so and obviously because he's done it with a monster, because he did it with a Bastillodon, he gets a bonus point.
Big swing there.
Yeah, it was big
early on too.
So Alex didn't play the additional point for killing a monster though, like in the turns, which I didn't know. I thought it was, and apparently in this game I found out towards the end, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, so I kind of thought, I don't know, I kind of didn't know what his army did, so I was a bit nervous of it. So he had quite an effective turn, but obviously it meant that he had to give up a salamander pack, which I kind of would rather that was a thing than them being behind stuff and shooting me forever.
Yeah.
And so that was it. He killed the harvester and some bits and bobs. He buffed the big unit skinks with that, mortal wounds on 6s to wound. I some of the buffs you just get them automatically. There's no roll, nothing. It just puts a token down. He had you could see all the tokens on the back. He had loads of tokens. I was just like, whatever. You just tell me what it does. So basically, throughout the game, like I basically use the terrain to chunk up the table, right? So I was like, well, I can't remember what mission this was, but it was the Star Strike, wasn't it? Because they come down later. That's why I was trying to work out why they're in a weird position on your table. That's why. So I put the Mortek here across these 2 bits with Mystic Shield and rerolls, and so it's very good. And the Stalkers, they can do this hunt and kill. They can fly, so I could fly them over the terrain, which was this big like rocky stuff. And I got them into the Skink unit and into his character, but I'd already charged another unit of Mortek in to sort of. So basically, I took the stand and shoot and went in and. I think I charged. Yeah. Anyway, I charged in the Skink screen with the Mortek in front, and then the other guys charged behind it, and then they piled in. And it was like, where do you unleash hell, basically? But trying to remember the game, but it was kind of like one of these grindy games where not a lot died. I didn't realize as well that you can make the Stegodon fly as well with a thing. They get fly as well as run and charge, and so he then later on he ended up flying that Stegodon over my Mortek guard, which was fun. Then the Salamanders I was there grinding them with my other Mortek. The Life Swarm was in there with the guy. Then I pushed up on the other side, and what I did with Arcan, I flew him right into a unit of 10 Skinks, killed them, and I was going to chase the Salamander down. And I had a decision to make. I thought if I get the turn, I'm in a good spot here, because I can basically then get if I can get rid of the Salamanders, I can get in and pin the Bastillodons in combat with the Cavalos. And if he charges both of them, they have to shoot him, and he's very resilient, and he's got Mighty Arcosian, and I can just make him defensive, and he can just chunk the damage.
Yeah, they'll just hold him up for a fair bit at least.
Yeah. And it means they're either not shooting or they're shooting him and he's just tanking it. So, but anyway, as the game went on, it's there was lots of rolling, lots of stuff not dying, lots of stuff running away. The key point was this at the end. So basically, with Star Strike mission, I'll just explain this. It's entirely my fault. I should have won this game, 100% guaranteed. Objective here. Objective here, and objective here. So that's what happened is I've got this unit of 20 Mortek here that then healed up, and after I ground that off, I moved Arcan back because I was like, well, I'll come back and support my army rather than be doing something clever. And then I decided to so what happened is this Bastillodon charged in here to pin my guys. When I piled in sort of diagonally this way. Then with the good thing about when you retreat with Bonereapers, if you use your +3 move, that's just movement, that's not running.
Yeah.
So they essentially got a 7-inch move when they retreat. So they retreated and they tagged that objective in the last turn. So I was like, well, I'm going to score that one. I'm going to score this one but this time his Stegodon was over here, and it was in combat with this stuff. He was dead, and his Bastillodon had 3 wounds left. So my battle tactic should have been claim 2 objectives. Just
fully within your control. Non-optional as far as he's concerned.
But what I did, for whatever reason, I think because in my head I thought I get a bonus point for killing a monster, with a monster, because Arcan can do it. So I'm going to get like 3 bonus points. I don't need them, actually. I could have done it without. And I thought, well, I'll kill it because I've got 4 casts of Arcane Bolt, and I had both my wizards in combat with it. And it's only got 3 wounds left. It doesn't have a mortal wound save. Yeah, he's got a slant to unbind. but I didn't get a single cast off. I chose to bring it down, didn't kill it, which then meant I lost it by 1 point. And to add insult to injury, the secondary mission was he had to kill Arcan, and I had to kill his general. And what happened is that the Mortec, because he was within 3 of my, I retreated the Mortec out, but because he was within 3 of my other models, when he piled in, he brought them back within 3. And the ones that I hit it with, I shouldn't have piled in. I piled in and attacked. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just rolled a couple dice. I rolled my dice thinking, well, he's tanked my army the whole game. And then all of a sudden I did 8 wounds, which was just enough to kill it, because I rolled like an absolute idiot on that combat, which then meant I got 40-0'd, which was a little bit frustrating. Entirely my fault. I could have won that. I don't know if the 2 objectives, they can't be in your territory, but I think the territory was the 9-inch anyway, so that was on the border, which wasn't wholly within, so I think it's fine. But anyway, it was a miscalculation on the battle tactic, and I didn't spend enough time because we were so late. This is my excuse anyway, because we were so late in the round and we were into lunch. You
didn't stop to do the maths and be like, there's this option, there's this option.
Spent a minute.
I want to win by 1. That's enough.
I should have just spent a little bit more time rather than rushing it, and I was just trying to make the decision quickly, and I thought it won't matter. That'll do. It's like 90-something odd percent that I'm going to do this, so I'll just pick that one. Whereas if I spent 30, if I just went, because I had the cards, if I went through reading them all, the only problem I don't like them is they're double-sided, so you kind of have to flip them round and then put them to one side. I think I might invest in that pro-painted battle point tracker just so I can see what's available and what's there. Just because it's a lot easier. And I was like, actually what I should have done is just taken a second to look properly and go, well, that's guaranteed.
You wouldn't even cost yourself any more time net, because one of them didn't involve you getting into combat.
Well, I could have just retreated everything out of combat and been like, well, the game, and it would have been quicker. So it wasn't even a time thing, but
it happens. Learning experience.
Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed because I thought I would have been on 4 wins with OBR going into round 5, leading the tournament with a chance to podium.
You're actually against one of the few armies that were your definite crap matchups. When you the Lumineth and the Seraphon were 2 of the worst, I'm guessing, for your army.
Seraphon, I just don't know. I don't play it enough. Like my army's not too bad against it because this whole army reduces your damage by 1, and my Mortec are damage 1.
Lots of damage 1.
So the thing that didn't really do a lot was the Stalkers. It's the only time I've not done +1 damage on their attacks when I've gone in. I've just gone re-rolls because I was like, well,
why not?
There's no point because the damage will get reduced anyway. So it's like, it's not no point. Although it didn't make any difference, but and you can see through the picture my stack of Relentless Discipline that I didn't spend. But it was kind of like, it's a bit of a weird mission because you kind of got to be patient to wait for the stuff to drop. And I think
really hard to balance.
I think the problem is if we'd have played 5 turns, I would have won like easily, because like it wasn't like I had lost anything. I'd lost like a Cavalos and a Harvester. He'd had like his general was dead. He had 1 Bastion on 2 wounds. The other one was in combat with my Harvester on half wounds. I had Mortec comfortably on 1 objective. I've still Arcan's alive, Soul Mason's alive, and I'm still on the chance of getting a double turn. And I was just like, it would have been my game to lose. And I just kind of thought it kind of felt a little bit like a bit frustrating because that Sunday 20 Mortec ain't going anywhere, and they just, if I had then won the turn roll going into 4, the 20 Mortec goes straight into his back lines, Arcan goes straight into his Slan.
You just turn his game off, don't you?
It's just gone. It's just gone. The game's just gone. Because I should be able to Arcane Bolt the because it's start of the phase, so you cast it in the hero phase, use it in the movement phase, then you can move away and then you can charge. So it's like, because he was already in combat, so I was like, well, he could just zap it off, which sort of should have happened really, but it didn't. But anyway, could have, would have, should have. But I mean, felt a little bit. I think the problem is the rounds were very short.
Also, if he's a fastidious player and he's got an army that does a lot of things, which Lizmen do, then that time can...
There's a lot of decisions. There's a lot of buffs.
your army's quite a fast one, and you know it inside out, don't you?
It wasn't when I started. I think the problem is on Sunday morning I was a little bit poopy with stuff. Just because I was I'm always a bit shit in the mornings anyway. But it wasn't like I was being slow. But we weren't. If you said to me, was he slow? I wouldn't have said he was particularly slow.
Just say the game felt rushed.
It's just the army is particularly. It's that kind of army.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is like when more tech, you have to roll like save, re-roll, after save, bounce save. It takes time.
Yeah.
Like it just and. I was saying that like when you've got to pick a battle tactic every turn and everyone's got to spend 2 to 3 minutes thinking about and reading it, that's adding on half an hour to every game, which you didn't have in AOS 2.
Yeah.
It just takes time. Like so it's a bit frustrating. So I'm not saying anything about Mike. He wasn't slow or anything. I'm not complaining. It's just it was the only person I was annoyed with myself for not spending 30 seconds reading the extra card, because I picked one up, read it, went, that looks doable, and I didn't read through the other two, which I should have done. So that was the
eye wipes and stuff like that are helpful, because it just very apparently making it visually obvious like what you haven't or haven't done, or maybe even just like before the tournament just putting a line through something saying my army can't do this or stuff like that is useful, I think.
It's just very scenario and table dependent, like because it's not particularly obvious. Like one of the ones I was doing quite a lot was get 2 monsters in their territory, because Arcan, where the harvesters were pushing up the table, there'll be a point where a harvester's close enough and he moves in and then Arcan just flies over and you're like, well, they've done. And that's why Arcan is so good in the OBR, because he gives you that movement. And there's one where you can test an objective of a monster. He's also a monster, so there's 2 missions that you can score going like 3 and 5, like turn 3, turn 4, which he's going to score pretty much guaranteed, and gives you
the pivotal point.
Yeah, so you basically just go, well, I've got my easy battle tactics out of the way. I've got those 2 pretty much guaranteed, so I'm scoring a battle tactic every turn. So I've only got to worry. I mean, there was only one turn I didn't score my battle tactic, and that was that turn. Throughout the whole tournament, I never failed to score a battle tactic, so it was a bit frustrating that it was the key one. But there you go.
Well, Poopy Sundays
is what it is, that's fine.
Absolutely.
And your game 5, I don't think I've got any pictures of this.
There is a video or 2.
I'll slot those. So where we're into videos, I'll slot those in. Just won't be on the screen as we're talking, because it'll cut in, cut out. So, unless I might have a picture. Nurgle, was it?
No, it was Stormcaster Shootcast.
Don't have it then.
No, he didn't face any Nurgles. So I was playing against Lewis with his Stormcaster Tunnels. Pretty shooty list, which is exactly what Slaanesh do not want to see. Especially low model count Slaanesh, with little to no debuffs. All I've really got is Lurid Haze and, trying to not die. So I rocked up. I obviously I'd had more sleep on this day, but I was pretty tired. And I rocked up, and Stormcast have always been a headache to me, because I tend to play hyper flexible movement armies, and at least for turn 1, Stormcast are always just more flexible than I am, which I don't like. I want to be the most flexible. I do not want to play on my opponent's turns, and I tend to play lists that want to very much not play on my opponent's turns. Despite Stormcast not being, a crazy force to be reckoned with or anything, obviously they're probably going to get a new book at some point soon. I really didn't.
And they're getting dragons.
No, sure, that'll bounce out their issues, I'm sure. But I really didn't fancy this matchup, particularly given that he had. I don't exactly know where it came from, but he was in Anvils of the Heldenhammer. And all of his army, when it died, just had a chance to do wounds back at you. And when you're Slaanesh and you don't have after saves, really, generally, that stuff really mounts up. So even when you're killing his crappy things, if his Vanguard Hunters blow up and, they get a 6 and you take a wound here or there, it really does mount up surprisingly fast when your entire army's got like 80 wounds or something like that. The only thing with an after save is the Keeper, and the Keeper's got a 6 up from the Aegis.
Yeah,
so,
that's from the new battle trait. So it comes in the Dominion box where a Redeemer dies. Thunderstrike thing. The Thunderstrikes do it an extra dice, but you roll a dice and do mortals when they die when you've got 3.
And you had a unit of 4 Dracolines. They did that. You roll as many, like, as each one of them dies, you roll as many wounds as they had, which I think is 5 per model or something like that. And yeah, so these wounds kind of they worried me a bit when he described them. He also had some Aether Wings in there, which are just horrible. And he had 1 unit. I would have like 3 units if I was in Stormcast. I think they're amazing. And then just a fair amount of quite intimidating shooting. Now, I was going to get the choice to go first or second. I didn't rate my own capacity. He could come down within 7 as well, which makes a big difference as far as blocking off the table goes. I didn't rate my capacity to be able to do anything intelligent here, so I didn't. And what I did was I pushed my army up the table as fast as possible, popped Sigvald off for Lurid Hazing, popped, I think it might have just been Sigvald, actually. No, I think it was Sigvald. It was either Sigvald or the classic of Sigvald and 1 unit of Hellstriders, which is one of my go-tos. Just gives you a little bit of flexibility. But I just didn't think I could do enough or have the mental capacity to be able to guard my backboard edge from his shit coming down that was then going to put a load of fairly effective shots into me and stuff like that. So I moved everything absolute maximum. My priority cast was Cogs, Mystic Shield. I best day evered the Keeper again, which is a solid strat, absolutely. And all I was geared towards was shooting off the Aether Wings. I put all of my Bliss Barb shots into them, which felt a bit grim when they they wouldn't even be getting a save against me. Maybe they've got no save anyway. Shot them off so they wouldn't get to block me up and get in the way of my charges. And then I failed Sigvald's charge with a reroll, which was a bit gutting. He was going to go over on the flank and just get into certain libs with the opportunity of being within attack twice range for the Keeper once she'd made it in. Sigvald failed, but then all of my other units made it, and I mean all of my other units. So every single unit in my army made its charge at that point, and that was quite big, really. Some of them were 11s, some were 10s. Cogs helped me make like 3 of them, so that did some work, and that was basically it, really.
So it concludes. Are we gonna? Do you mind being on camera? Are we gonna say that I got quite a lot of luck in that one?
It was lucky, but it was good play. It was good play.
So I just made all of my charges. Basically, that's my rolls in combat weren't amazing or anything. Neither were my saves, but I got to where I needed to be really effectively, and I also won the double. So yeah. Oh well, it happened. We had some events. One archer survived 8 Hellstriders for like 3 rounds of combat on his own. Dracoline still didn't die despite a Keeper and Varangard twice buffed, and the Keeper was buffed too, so they were pretty tanky. But in terms of board positioning, I just got everywhere that I needed to be on the table. So maybe we'll play again when you get a new book.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right.
I have a quick question about his army list, because it's like looks like it's missing half the stuff off of it.
I think it's missing the.
Because you have the guy give him the 7-inch drop. Obviously, he's missing.
What was the long range?
Long strikes.
Yeah, he had 2 units of long strikes.
Bit of key stuff to miss off his list, to be honest, because it's list on the website says 5 Vanguard, 3 Aether Wings, 5 Libs, a Venator, an Aquila, and a Zeros. So. Yep. That doesn't look like a 2,000 point. That looks like a
no, it doesn't.
No,
only person with an army that looks smaller than mine at the
2 units of 6 long strikes. That was the rest.
Yeah,
of the
he
points.
did.
Right. Okay.
And they were scaring the.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Scaring the crap out of me as well. They can just pick a unit of my army and kill it. It doesn't matter what it is, unless it's Sigvald with Lookout Sir, in which case I'm still probably worried. As it was, they got a stand and shoot and did some fairly effective stuff, but I ordered my charges carefully to make it so that he put one stand and shoot the Drax into the Varangard, and then it was just trying to hold him there, basically. So I had a pretty good turn as far as damage went. Obviously, Sigvald was just standing over here on his own, looking a bit lost, but he's not particularly afraid of 5 Liberators. I think he can handle that. So he stood there, and the rest of my army made it in, and that was basically it. Sounds a bit reductive, but that happened. Then I didn't lose priority, and that was the game essentially. I got a huge amount of depravity racked up in my first turn, like a colossal amount. Yeah. And I was sat on I think I was on 13 or 12, so enough for exactly what I wanted. He brought his units down. He had to play for double. He played it correctly, and I won it. The Demonettes made their charge, and that was essentially it, really. So Signal didn't really come into this one. He kind of went off, and I think he failed to do damage to some Liberators or something really disappointing like that. Like, he literally did nothing, but the rest of the army overperformed, particularly the Hellstriders that just made their charges with every roll and kind of stood in the way a fair bit. On terrain, they're good, actually. I really like, if I can, charging them for the -1 to hit in their turn, and then with a couple of casualties often, taking off 2 of them off the back and having 3 on terrain, so they're getting a 3-up save. Makes a bit of a difference with them, so they kind of did their job, and that was it, really. But I can't particularly... The intelligent choice was knowing that I didn't have the capacity to be intelligent, so I just mitched it up the table, and it worked out. I played the odds very well, I think, but after that, there wasn't anything particularly technical going on.
No, fair enough. I mean, it's a bit unusual that you played basically 2 gun lines with Slaanesh, but I guess because of the way the missions score, they're not on the missions. So
it's if you limit your their Unleash Hells are really scary, and you have to play around that and factor that in, or put something else in so that they're shooting your Vanguard or whatever it is. I felt that I misplayed the most out of everything with the Vanguard, actually. I played the Keeper fairly well, generally speaking, especially in day 2. But
just because you've not really used them before?
I don't know.
Or you just thought they were better than they are or something? Or...
I think a bit of that. I think 1 and a Chaos Sorcerer is better than 2, and it saves you a load of points.
Yeah.
Having said that, what you do with the rest of the points you gain is get some Chaos Knights, which naturally have a 4-up save instead of a 3-up save, so and don't do mortals or stuff like that.
The unit's got the same amount of wounds, though, hasn't it? And you're getting...
It has, yeah. They got +1 charge as well, which is a huge reason to take them, because they can be lurid hazed, because it doesn't require head knights. It requires...
But you would have took them if you didn't have to paint them, right? Because you didn't have much time, so...
You didn't have to build them. But I might build them now. We'll see. We'll be discussing changes to lists in a future episode, I guess.
Yeah, you're all inspired to go and convert and paint those models. So
So I'd gone loss, draw, win. So I did have a curve that got better.
I was the opposite.
Don't spoil it. What was your game then? Are you facing something nice and squishy now?
No. So literally
strongest army at the event.
Oh yeah, I think so. I looked round the tables and I was like, when I saw it, and I was like, that's the only army that when I looked through the list, I just in a million years just didn't want to play it. So I was playing Matthew G or Matthew Gouldsberg with a very nice Lumineth army, which
gorgeously painted. Yeah.
In Helen hard mode. Well, I don't really know what's hard mode about it, but I'll talk about that.
Your game.
Yeah, maybe it's hard mode for your opponent. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
He did play it. I mean, to give him all credit, he knew exactly what he was doing with it. So, not taking anything away from him, he played a very good game. So, it might sound a little bit negative from me, but it's more the experience rather than him as a player, because I think he played it pretty spot on, to be honest. Which made it worse. So I'd rather he didn't. It would have been better. But hey ho. So this army.
No Teclis. So that makes it weaker, right?
No, better.
No.
Teclis is overpointed for what he does, I think, and although it's
or maybe he's just appropriately pointed, and that feels odd in the book.
Maybe, but I think with Teclis he's kind of like a known quantity. He's a lot easier. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather people have Teclis than have Severith and 15 Kangaroos.
He's also less good in not 1-drop 80 archer lists, I think, which is where he does feel underpointed potentially in the completely non-interactive I go before you and kill you list.
Yeah, exactly. And the mission didn't help, in all honesty, because it's the 6 missions that you can burn, the 6 objectives you can burn. So the problem I've got here is that he's got very fast maneuverable units. I want to blow up the table and kind of grind off. He can just avoid me with flyers, and then he's got a lot of concentrated damage. Well, that's the problem with Speed of Hish. They can move 32 inches. then they can charge you, then they can pile in away from you, then they can move again with a command ability. So in one turn, I think they moved 80 inches. So, but this is the deployment. So you can see the shrine here with his wind mage in, and then they're blobbed up with his wind charges, so can't even charge that. He was very worried about Arcan's Curseiers. So he was measuring, his deployment took a while. He was trying to put his sentinels, like his wardens, in front like this, with a blob here and a blob here. He was doing the old dumbbell thing where you had a string of men in the middle and 2 blobs either end. And his idea here was that I couldn't get to the wind charges, but they're in front of the thing, and then and I was like, I haven't got anything that fast really. But he spent ages trying to sort it out, and I just said, look, because I think you didn't realise he was measuring to like this gap here and this gap here, and then I was like, yeah, I can just put him here, like on the terrain, on my terrain, and be in range, and he just moved them backwards, and he just put them all in this bit here. I took the first turn because he gave it to me. I was like, well, I'll tell you what I'll do then. I will try and put some pressure on. So I thought I could take the objective. I rolled a 6 because the problem is with the way its discipline works, and you got no rerolls. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to roll for my run, so I could have rolled like a 4.
Yeah.
And this kind of the thing, like you wish you knew your battle tactic before you got there, because you like, if I know I'm going to roll a 6 on a run, then that tactic would have been easy, right? But I didn't, so I ran this unit up. I got a big 6 on the run. Didn't have enough to cap it. Just about. Ironically, I think if he'd strung his unit out the front, I probably would have done. So I ran up, rolled a big 6 with Mystic Shield, put my wizard here, and I was like, okay, I just stay fairly back. I didn't want to put too much up, because of the damage. And what I probably should have done is been way more aggressive, but I was worried about him coming over the back and just taking my back objectives. Yeah. So you can't burn in turn 1, but I could have got double turned, so he could have come in.
Your army doesn't hugely have the ability to spread out, does it? It's kind of it's in a solid line. If people can get behind the line, you don't have the ability to be.
It can. It just can't do it against armies that can basically move double speed or ignore. And then because if you double turn me, you could have literally burnt all 3 of my home objectives if I'd pushed up too much. So I had to kind of just hold ground and go, well, if he comes into the middle
on both sides.
Yeah, and I probably, in hindsight, like maybe I should have ran, but I did the mission where I run 3 units, and so when I do that, these 3 here, this triangle, I was like, well, I don't want to run up the table because then I can't run the other 2 if I roll low, I can't do it, and because I can't spend Relentless Discipline more than once on a +3 move, it's like you can't really mitigate the bad run where so you're like you can't really do much about it. So I just thought, well, I'll just do that. So I definitely could have played this better, but I've never played against this style Lumineth, so it's kind of a learning experience. Then, like in his go, obviously I didn't have a charge because I ran and didn't have anything really exciting to do. Didn't have any magic in range because even with the bonus range, there was nothing in range. So in his go, he basically moved the Wind Riders out after buffing or putting Lambent Light on the unit of Mortec. Chose Killer Battle Line unit. And to be honest, like my Mortec never died at all weekend. They were just like they're just really, really resilient. And I was like, well, he's got mortal wounds, 5 up, re-rolling. There's no harvester there. They're probably going to die. And that's what happened. He killed them all. He did actually have to charge the wardens in as well, I believe. But these guys here, and then he had the sentinels. He's got sentinels here, sentinels here, sentinels here. They've all got 5 up mortal wounds. Lambert lights on here. It's all going to shoot me. I don't even think he charged the wardens in, actually. I'll double check on the next photo. But he shot basically everything, and Severith come over the top, and then he shot my hero as well. Yeah, he did charge in. And what he was doing is he was doing this this little cheeky thing of having this little group at the back, these 3, which means you're in coherency with a string outline and then a bubble of guys, and the guy right at the back's the champion. So when he wants to cast his magic, he's completely out of unbind range.
Yeah.
But he's still enacting the table in the middle by doing a tail with 3 men at the back.
Yeah.
Which is kind of frustrating. So it's just played well, you know. And obviously, like with a command point, he was able to push all the kangaroos exactly back to where they were. Because what he did is he charged both the wardens and the kangaroos in. But when you fight with Lumineth, you fight with 2 units. So he picked the kangaroos and piled him backwards 6 inches to be within range of the command ability to then move back to the shrine. And then fought with the wardens and killed the Mortek. And then it's sort of like turn roll. If I win it, then I'm like, well, I kind of got to take it. But it's like what I was hoping that I might get a chance to put Severith in the middle, and I just can't get him. And then what happened is I basically I had a lot of stuff, and maybe retrospect I should have put the Stalkers on the other side of the table and you'd been more aggressive with the Cavalos. But I was kind of worried that. And I think what I did here is I was a little bit too piecemeal in approach. I should have been way more aggressive. And then essentially what I did is tried to come up here. And again, this was another thing. So I run a big run roll on this unit of 10 Mortek. Now, if I knew that, I could have took that objective because he had 10 guys and I had the Bone Tithe Shrieker. So what I did is I used the gaze attack from... I could have used the gaze attack from the Bone Tithe Nexus to kill 1 Sentinel, which would have given me 10 to his 9, which would have capped the objective.
Yeah.
But because I didn't know I was going to run a 6 on the run roll, I didn't think I'd be there. And I had the Bone Tithe Shrieker up and I Curse of Years the unit and I killed like some Wardens. I wanted them not to have a bigger battle shock. So I pinged an extra one off there. And it always felt like hindsight would have been great.
Yeah.
And then I had a choice with the Harvester. Do I run it, needing a 4 to get him in range of the objective to cap it? Or do I shoot at a Shining Company with all-out defense and Aether Quartz archers to kill 1, which then would mean I would cap the objective? And I actually did the maths. And the 50-50 run roll was better. But if I could have used Relentless Discipline on a second unit, I could have just guaranteed it.
Yeah. So you felt more in this game than any of the previous games that your book's just a bit behind the times.
This was the fact. As long as if you could spend Relentless Discipline on multiple units to do the same ability, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. The other thing it would have done, if I'd got the run, the Harvester would have been in range to heal those Mortek. So we would have had 15 wounds worth of models stood on his objective that with a Harvester in range. So he's got a choice: shoot the Harvester and get charged, or shoot the Mortek and don't kill any.
Yeah, you'd be able to give him more difficult decisions than you were able to.
Yeah, and it also would have meant that. But the problem is, Severith is literally a 24-inch move, 12-inch in my shooting phase, 12-inch in his, doing mortal wounds. I can't get him, and he's literally just going to fly all over the table, burning all my objectives.
Yeah, and
there's nothing I can do about it, because if I cover this objective, he'll go there. If I cover this objective, he'll go on either of these two, and I just can't do anything about it. It's just literally I can't charge him. I haven't got magic, won't kill him. He's always keeping him outside of range. I can't bolt him because I can't get close to him to do any damage. He's got a ward save anyway, and he can heroically heal.
There's not much that can touch him. No, you were saying that I should take Sinessa to have the options to be able to kill him in my lists. Yeah. Yeah, you need some pretty obscure stuff.
And like, it's fine, but the mission really screwed me. If this was the mission with the 3 things in the middle of the table, I'd been fine.
Different matter, yeah.
It's different mission, you know. Like, so this mission particularly is just horrific. And you know, like, and I basically then came around the side, and you know, by this point, what do I do? And you can see, like, I lost the Mortek the next turn because he basically moved his whole army over and dealt with them. And then there's nothing for me to get to apart from 1 unit of Sentinels. So then he gave the turn away when he won it, which then he allowed to take one of the objectives off. So he took the one off in my deployment zone. He should have took the one in his territory, which would have stopped me getting the milkshake special mission. Yeah. But he didn't, which cost him 5 tournament points, I think. I was never won in the game. It wasn't the best choice. And the thing is, I could get up there and try and kill some stuff, killed some Sentinels, kill a character in the building, But to be honest, it got to the point I was just like, it was getting close to the end of the round, so we just had to call it. But I think if the game went on, it was inevitable I was going to lose because I just can't.
You run out of units. He picks a thing and kills it each turn.
I just can't catch him. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like I'm movement 4, movement 6. Can't overextend one unit because it just gets comboed.
Can't leave your back end behind.
Can't leave my back objectives, but I don't have enough units to put 3 units back to hold them and push my army up. And even if I did, the unit's not resilient enough to sit there and survive a Severith shots, Sentinel shots, because they can shoot from 30 inches away. Like, even a shot, just Seraphon on his own and a unit would just kill a unit, whatever's there. Even if I had like a hero, he'd die. So it's not like I've got anything that can sit there, and I can't sit my Mortec back and just get shot for 5 turns.
Yeah.
And
it's exactly like my game, but I wasn't against something as hard. So I was like, well, I don't have a chance of being able to be here and there, so I'm going to be there. And I will cross fingers for, not losing a priority or not having particularly bad luck in combat or not getting shot off with Unleash Hell or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know whether as the game went on you'd struggle with battle tactics, but we never got to play through. So if you only play 3 turns and there's 3 very easy ones, you're going to score them, aren't you? So, but I think what I played for here was I had the choice to basically have 2 You can see there's 2 monsters in the deployment zone. So you can see that they're in the territory. So that's that one. But I've also contested this objective of monster. Gives me a point. So then the next turn I could do like, okay, Arcan can come here, he can go here, this guy can go here. But the problem is with redeploy and with the speed of Hish and with the movement, out of sequence movement, I just can't get the kangaroos. There was one turn when he had the choice to basically teleport them from where they were. So they were like, let me go to a better picture for this. So they were like, this is the turn. So they were here. Let me just draw it. They were here. He charged, piled him backwards, and then teleported to here. But they had double move on, so they were movement like 32. And what he could have done is he could have moved them here and capped this objective here. Or this objective. He could have capped his, moved him there and capped both those objectives, and then just camped these 2 and removed this one to stop me getting his, and then I'm never going to win the game.
Yeah.
And like, for me, it was like, it just didn't feel like I had any chance to get into the game, apart from those little fringe bits of luck at the beginning, where if I run a big roll, but if I killed an archer, maybe I would get up a couple points, it would kind of mitigate it. But because of the mission, I'm never going to win that game.
Sounds like it was the only one where you really felt the tier difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's an optimal list, so whereas like Liam Alford's list is kind of a bit of everything. It's not. I wouldn't say it's optimized, but he also played it in a very kind of like strong way. The only game he lost was actually to the Seraphon player that was playing on table 1 for the tournament, which was Mike. That I lost to the previous round, but it annoyed me because I shouldn't have been playing this army, because I should have just done the other mission. Therefore, I would have been playing Fabian with Tzeentch Archeon. And although that's a tough list, I've played against it before, and it's more in my wheelhouse. It's more that I'm
less unknowns.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable playing against that than I am.
Yeah.
Plus, he doesn't have the movement like this in this scenario. It's still a good army, don't get me wrong. It would have been a tough matchup, but I would have rather have played that. I definitely didn't play as optimal as I could have done. I think the problem is that I didn't realise how his army worked.
Yeah.
So when you see it deployed and you don't really know what it does, you kind of set up, and then as the game goes on, you're like, oh, well, I'm now really out of position. And if I'd known that command ability to move twice and all that stuff, because the problem is there's so many rules, I would have spread myself out better. I would have been more across the board, and I probably would have just pushed my whole army up turn 1, knowing that he can't burn on turn 1. And if he wants to try and be aggressive, then I can just run backwards into turn 2, as long as I don't get doubled. But I'd rather have that quick game, he did double me, than this kind of long, drawn-out, slow death by 1,000 movement.
And then you were derpy like I did.
It's just one of those things. Like, if I play this game again, I'd play it completely differently, but it's, again, like, it only takes, like, that Mortec unit it only takes that. Not if I'd known I was going to roll that high on the run, I would have stacked the shield on them.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And then I was like, I ran the run roll, and I said I could have kept them further back, but being on my objective or on his objective is irrelevant because they're in range because they're 30 inches.
Yeah.
And the kangaroos can move whatever they want and shoot and then move back again. So
the board getting smaller has made a big difference to armies like this. They can literally be like almost anywhere, which is obviously doesn't need saying how good that is.
Trying to be clever, like using the terrain to block line of sight, is pointless because they don't need line of sight, and the kangaroos are so fast they can just move where they can see. So I should have just, and actually the terrain was actually a hindrance to me rather than to him.
Yeah,
because I can't move around it, I can't move through it. So actually where the terrain was actually a pain in the ass because I have to almost choose a side. Do I go left or right on it? And then if I go right, he goes left. And if I go left, he goes right. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it.
I mean, they're chasing each other around a tree like a cartoon.
Yeah, but the difference is he's got guns. So this was still like, it was good to see and learn and understand it because...
Well, yeah, have to. You might face it in the future.
Well, yeah. And it's sort of, I think it's something you have to consider when you do a list crafting stage. It is almost a bit of a shame because the problem with the Severith or the Fox list, if they got multiple, you're only really going to be able to kill them if you've got any range threat. And a lot of the armies I play don't have access because they're death armies.
A lot of armies in the game just don't have long enough shooting to be able to reach that far. You know, I don't have it, even with one and charge and 18 inches. It depends on my run roll whether I'm going to have the capability of reaching that generally.
And then if you
probably wouldn't die.
They can shoot you. And then he's actually not that easy to kill with shooting.
No.
So, yeah, I think the catapult, because of that model, becomes a necessity. But the problem is even that isn't going to get in range.
I never change my list on something that's a chance that low. Of, you know, if it's at model, I just have to, like when I was trying to be able to be Change Host or Stormcast Eternals when I was playing my mixed order, I just gave up. There wasn't no point. Sorry. And I just crossed my fingers to not face them, or that when I did face them, because you might play someone who doesn't play well, or you might play them in a scenario that favors you. And if you take all of those multiplications and add them together, it's like a 1 in 180 chance that it actually matters or something. So I just cross fingers.
Yeah,
sick advice, Byron. Well done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you just do suck it up and just accept it. And like in a different mission, it may not have been as important because if he can't get on the objectives because they're covered, then it doesn't matter. But
if he can't ban them,
and the problem is if you had 3 objectives, it's a lot easier for me to blob on 3 and go, well, you can't dance around them because if he's near them to contest them, I'm going to be charging him.
Yeah, I'll just take 2 even.
Whereas when there's 6 objectives, it's a bit harder. So
it's always favoured armies with a high flexibility movement, like the old Scorched Earth.
It was just a bit of a shame when I looked around the tables around me and I was like, oh, there's an Urkel army, there's an Angels army, there's and I was like, I looked around and went, oh, all these armies would be really nice to play. Actually, Liam was at the table next to me. So I was surrounded by, and I was like, actually, there's a lot of armies around here that I wouldn't mind playing, wouldn't have an issue with. And it wasn't like, I'm not trying to make Matt turn out to be a bad guy because he played it very well and he was very practiced and he's obviously put a lot of time and effort into his army because he painted it lovely. So
anyway, winners, losers,
yeah, we can
painters.
I was definitely a loser
supporters
too. So well, I ended up not so well because
a bit above me. Were you like 32 to my nearly 40 or something?
Well, I was
that?
22 according to the website, but I don't think that's got all the other scores on it. So
let's check out Alex's tweets.
Yeah. So I'll
talk about.
So I'll talk about the tweet up. Hang on. Let me.
You do that. I'll talk about painting. So painting wise, the army that we've just spoken about, I had a little chat with Alex running the event, and we decided that I found out that it wasn't going to be winning player voted. So we invented between us a category for technical painting because it was, absolutely bloody gorgeous, packed with conversions, the objectives, the terrain piece, all really well executed, an incredible theme that just got better as you got closer, which is the opposite of my army actually. His was made for 1 foot and was solid at 3 feet. Mine was made for 3 feet and was wobbly at 1 feet. So he got that, and then we had I've forgotten the dude's name, the lovely lizard man with a huge backdrop.
Yeah, I've got photos, so I was going to do this. I've just rushed to get those ready, but I maybe do it in order. So Andy Hughes' Nurgle, which was in what I've got first. So
yeah,
we talk about those because they're
Shall I go on? I've already done an entire video on this. Shall I go on?
Okay.
Full and wax lyrical about it. So Andy's Nurgle are just an absolutely perfect example of every single decision on like what color should this be, or what should my display base be like, or what should be glossy, or stuff like that. I think this army is nigh on flawless in terms of every single thing he's picked to do with it. It looks great under any light, on any table, in any backdrop. The display base is practical and works perfectly. Even gives you like a reflecting photo opportunity in the pool in the middle. The shiny bases look great against the models. The only thing I thought it was lacking was the blending's actually really pretty solid, but it has blended out the wrinkles and the nuance on the skin, particularly of the great unclean ones and the biggies.
Yeah, because they look very smooth, don't they? And the model isn't that smooth.
They do. I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to be biased, but I dry brush those, and you get every single flaw and imperfection that's been sculpted into those models is exaggerated. Never mind made the most of, but exaggerated and pushed. But I think the army is extremely intelligent in terms of the bits that have been picked and why. Just think it's wonderful, really. So I'm not surprised it got voted for. That if anyone wants to see how you make an army good for tournament viewing, under crap yellow lights in shade on a horrible tablecloth, whatever it is, that's a flawless example. So people should go and check it out, and it was well deserved.
Yeah. Then you had Toby's Iron Jaws.
Yep. Super solid. Like a couple of Griblies in there. Iron Jaws always do really well anyway. I think a little, if you took the level of the characters and took it across the army, it's easy to say because it just is. Everyone could spend more time on every bit, but I think that would benefit the army a bit. But really, really solidly themed. He was pretty pleased to be up there, I think, as well. I had a little brief chat with him about it. Iron Jaws are always going to be fan favourites, so they did really solidly.
Yeah, and the I quite like the glowing eyes on the characters. I think was good. Like especially like you had like the red and it's red and blue, isn't it? I mean, it's quite a striking red, blue, and green in different areas, basically. So it's quite a striking color palette.
It needed a black cloth. I literally done a video on the bits that I changed about all of these. But it did. If that was on a matte black cloth, that army would look about twice as good.
But it was set up on a black mat, wasn't it? So.
Was it? Yeah, but it was a satin mat, so it reflected the light. And actually, in element where they were displayed, there's like bar lights at the same angle opposite that you're viewing the army from, so you had refraction from behind them as well, which meant that their backdrop was quite bright rather than dark and matte, which is, if you can control the environment your army is displayed on, you should.
And you had Tom's ogre army, which was based on sharks and
this one did really well with
turtles.
This one did really well with votes, and I'm not surprised to any degree whatsoever. Like, it's a cool theme. I also really like how obvious it is. Like, you know what everything in that army is instantly, even though it's mental. Painted really solidly. The basing, actually, I think, was probably, from the people who were looking at it, they're like, oh, the fish. And the fish are wonderful, the clownfish and stuff like that. But the actual painting of the basing is extremely crisp and clean. And his terrain piece was great. A few more terrain pieces to really ram home the theme is what I would have changed for that army.
I quite like the fact that the bases are very blue and there's a lot of orangey brown tones in the model, so they immediately pop off the base because orange and blue.
Picked Luke Morton in terms of the colour scheme, wasn't it, for his stippled Idoneth?
Very effective. Nice palm trees on the beach barbecue for the mill pot and treasure chest. So very cool. I like it. And then obviously your army was up. So speed,
clever decisions.
Light and shadow.
Clever decisions. Technically could be better. So I think I also displayed my army way better than anyone else apart from the Free Cities kind of old school looking Sylvaneth Wood Elf list, which made it look better than it was. So I did everything I could to hack, cheat, and finesse my way around the fact that I hadn't had long enough and I think it helped it punch above his weight, but it was punching above its weight and stood out as being not as good as the other stuff that was on the table with it. But that's what you get if you use your brains instead of your time. So
and that's super. Like you've got symmetry, so you've got like Varangard, you've got Varangard.
Yeah,
House Strider, infantry. Then you've got another height behind it of mid characters. Then you've got big character. You've got the terrain pieces, and the keeper as a centerpiece draws the eye, which is the thing you spent the most time on. So you can definitely see the painting hacks in full effect.
Even the objective markers to give me a wider frontage and another super low tier. So I think there was 4 tiers in there when really I had 3.
You put like 3 and 3 at the extreme corners, which then like sort of does that that shape. So clever.
1000 IQ for a 50 IQ army.
Actually, this Iron Jaws army had a lot of nice freehand and stuff on it, and I really like the Maw Crusher palette, the one that had the purple and green with the
again,
orange,
I think
brown basing.
Yeah, this one, the things that I picked out on it that I liked, the basing was super matte and just did work, was brilliant. Again, same as Toby's. Actually, the criticisms or feedback would be exactly the same as Toby's, like matte black cloth, or a consistent color background, and the rest of the stuff having a time like characters. One thing I did notice is you just kind of didn't notice the checks that were throughout the army because they were there.
Armor, isn't it? That's the
They were there, but they didn't pop. So I think a final white highlight on them or some really shiny chips or something would have perhaps, really pulled people. You've got to make shit obvious, otherwise people won't realize it's there, particularly people who aren't massively
You could almost turn all the armor into like classic Iron Jaws yellow just by glazing it, right, with a contrast. You could just literally just glaze the armor and it just pop, or like even Lamentis yellow, tint it into the yellow spectrum, and then all the checks would immediately pop out. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but beautiful.
Yeah, and this extremely busy jungle scene of Lisbon, Seraphon, with the Dreadsaurian and stuff hiding behind trees and tongues.
Not a single vanilla model in there. No. Everything's converted, all mental, all bright, made pretty durably, which I know is a weird thing to pick up on, but he's thought about that army attending events, and it's not as fragile as a lot of armies like that would be. It needs a fishy backdrop, like the backdrops you get in fish tanks, because particularly he's got a bird flying off right of the picture. It's like as colourful as the rainbow, and you just don't notice it. It just gets lost in the air.
You almost want almost like a ready Mount Volcano in the background with black clouds kind of thing.
Exactly that.
Just behind it, because the thing's very green. That would give it an immediate contrast to the backdrop and make it stand out. So I would do it in almost like an overcast red sunset-y, or have like a black mountain with fire coming out with, and then have a red sky with a bit of blue in it. It would pop really well. So
I think also because it is it's it is a diorama as much as it is an army. I think it's not that it matters for the people voting here, how the public voted. But I think people who are looking for technical skill maybe wouldn't look close enough to see that actually, it's executed really wonderfully in, the majority of places. Like his big dude is painted gorgeously. It looks properly like a lizard. And because there's so much going on, it's quite difficult. But I think you pick one or the other, right? And his looks like you've taken a plug out of a diorama. It's awesome.
I still think the Slaan's my favourite thing in that. But
whereas lots of stuff gets lost in the story. You look at it as a whole, not as a collection.
Then we got Liam Alford's Lumineth that I played. So
super crisp, lots of repetition. like a year, like it shows.
Interesting display board as well, with lots of lights and water and stuff.
It's just not finished. He mentioned it to me. Said it's it took so long to get the army. He's still working on that stuff. Once the terrain is no longer bare wood, and once he's worked out how to make the terrain for display board work, I think that'll really bring it up another level.
Yeah, I think it almost with the display board being so it's almost like a tray that isn't finished with rocks scattered on it. It almost makes the army look worse than if it was just set up on the table.
Agreed.
because it's actually quite hard to. Your eye gets distracted by this like massively flat, plain wood.
It's quite a distracting color, yeah. Matte black off again.
Even if the board was sprayed black and the individual elements were coloured, like the actual terrain bits that are on it were coloured, it would do work, I think. So
agreed, yeah, that's a good point.
Then we had a Beast of Chaos army, which was pretty busy, lots of stuff in it.
A load of stuff. Just like this is an example of repetition working wonders. Solid, good conversions throughout, consistent painting throughout, had real on-table presence. I would have spread this out.
Yeah,
like,
it's very kind of like cube. Compact, isn't it? And
it was made for like sweeping panning shots of a video, but not necessarily looking at in that sense.
Yeah, you kind of like miss stuff because you've got like a converted Bration of Corvus Cabal and like the Gorgon. He's out of shot on this photo, so I haven't got a picture of it. But yeah, like it's almost like that says a lot. If you take a picture, you can't fit it all in because it's very square. So you.
And the picture's awesome. It looks like a GW shot from like a packed regiment on a table or something. I really like that army. I thought it was super solid.
Then we got some close-ups of Matthew's Lumineth that we spoke about already, but you can just see the level. It's quite an interesting scheme that effectively is quite nice, where it's very efficiently done. Because he was quite humble about it, which is also quite nice. But just edge highlighting all the stuff and
getting the work,
doing all that, and the edge highlights on like the plumes. I mean, Wardens are a very sexy model to paint, and then even his Sentinels have got like cloaks. They're all converted. He's got like a converted champion with a raven. He's got like the basin. It's got the sort of the hex pillar stuff that you get from Beastgrave. Yeah, I was going to use a lot of that stuff on my Sons of Bear map, which never materialized. But yeah, like converted Sentinels, which I think look better than the standard ones.
Agreed. The army's gorgeous. Flock of Doom used to great effect as well in various spots on it.
Yeah, just so much cooler than the standard kits. Then like the Wood Elf, was a Wood Elf army. Is it cities? It's cities, yeah. But it very classic, isn't it? It almost looks like an old edition army.
Yeah, it does. I really like this, and it's displayed really well as well.
Very eye-catching.
The thing that I picked out on this is the spot color, which in this situation is not the oranges and reds because that's the army. It's like the greeny jade of the sides and stuff. That could just be taken up like 4 levels, right up. Like whether it's stippled or dry brushed or airbrushed or glazed or whatever, that could be made more of. Equally, the glowing eyes for me were a little pastel. Or, you could drop a wash in so that there was a dot in the center of the eye and then something darker and then the glow around it.
The palette's almost too similar. Like the base being almost the same palette as the model makes like you don't even realize the runes are painted in orange and red glow because they don't.
The little spikes dotted around, they would break it up more if they were more vibrant or more saturated too.
Yeah. It's still cool though. I mean, like
it's lovely.
It's like one of those armies that you look at and it looks very effective and eye-catching. So yeah, some really good armies. I mean, the quality was really good, wasn't it? I mean, like
I think it was probably like 30 that a normal, slightly smaller event would have been on that table. So Alex said it himself. He had a hard choice to pick which ones went up there.
Yeah, I was hoping that I might get a cheeky nom because I was quite happy
well, maybe mine took your place because I was surprised to be there. I started the video going through the armies and then was informed by someone to my right that I hadn't displayed my army.
But it's a bit weird because at no point in the weekend did it get displayed for him to look at. He kind of went round as people were playing.
And this is something that we've noted and we'll be reminding people at FACEHAMMER because I think you've got to make it easy for yourself as a TO and then also easy for other people to...
Well, it shortlists for you, doesn't it? Because you say set your army up for first lunch if you want to be considered, and then it immediately means you've reduced the amount of people you have to consider.
Yeah,
and it allows you to look at the army as a piece,
as a displayed piece, not like separate from its Deadpool or its objectives or.
My army looks a lot better in in situ as a displayed force.
Oh, mine looks pants just spread around a table.
Yeah, exactly. Like
everything has to be next to the keeper, otherwise it looks wild.
Yeah, it's like the keeper or nothing, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's like, which like I think is cool. I'll put a quick picture up of my stuff just to, because it's my channel, I'll do what I want. But
this is lovely. I think it's strange how similar lots of people have been complimenting your basing and my basing, and they're both fairly similar in terms of tone. I was
very happy with the decision to rebase my army. So my army's not like, it's not finished. Like it's like the blue's not highlighted, the cloth's not highlighted, but all like the glow and the green base in it. I was really happy with the repaint of Arcan, or the new Arcan, and the harvesters and stuff, because I know you did your army quickly as well, but it was quite a lot to do.
Yeah.
Because I had to paint like the Life Swarm, the Stalkers, rebase the entire army. I put skulls on every base. I did the objective markers. I painted 2 harvesters. I painted like 3 more tech because I didn't want to take the special weapons, and I did take the special weapons because someone on the Discord said it's mathematically better, so I took it anyway. But actually I wish I didn't, because it's just quicker to roll less dice. And I had to paint the Bone Type Shrieker, which is back there. So I had quite a lot to paint. I magnetized the thing. It wasn't too bad. I did it in like a week, but it was, it's a fairly quick.
Wasn't a small
scheme.
amount.
I built and paint Arcan as well, so like it wasn't a small amount. So effectively, the only stuff I didn't paint was the Kavalos, the Shaper, and the Mortek, and the Bone Type Nexus, but they had work on them.
Yeah.
So everything had work done to them. The basing took way longer when I did the skulls, and I'll put skulls on the bases, and that took way longer than I thought it was going to take.
Always does. Mine, on the flip side, mine was the first time that I've not added details to a base, or basing scheme for an army. And mine, I think I mathed it out. If you X out the experimentation time, the painting time for my entire army's bases was 4 hours, which is an absolute bargain. So I'm super pleased with that. Having said that, it takes me forever to build the custom bases, so it completely counts itself.
It completely cancels itself out, right? So it's just, it's cool. But like I was pleased that I got the boy done Arcan, and he was good. He was really good. I think he's also auto-including Bonereapers, so that's good. So
Nagash next.
Yeah, I do. I was actually tempted to do a Nagash in that scheme and then do another Nagash for Soulblight. So it's
one's a practice one.
Yeah, well, to be honest, like
you do OBR first.
I've dry brushed an Archeon, so why not I dry brush a Nagash as well? So
exactly, yeah.
It's just how it works, right? It's fine.
I've dry brushed an army, mate.
Mate, my whole army is dry brushed. It's like
best thing about my army is the dry brushing. That's all people would talk about was one wing that has been particularly nicely dry brushed.
Yeah, I mean it's always a bit of a misnomer when you say, it's just dry brushed, but it's done like with a lot of technical skill. It doesn't lower.
I spent a fair bit of time perfecting my dry brushing, so hopefully by now my max level of dry brushing is all right.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes you're just like, it's a bit of a misnomer to be like, it's just dry brushed or it's just contrast, because it's in the day it's visually the effect that matters, not how you got there.
Right. Well, you can't duplicate what you get with dry brushing, so done right, it is literally.
And if you
unique.
make a mistake, you can't really correct it, right?
Yeah, you can like spray or buff or glaze, basically.
I don't know if this is the amended one because my paint score's wrong, but that's my excuse. We'll have a look. So Fabian was first, Toby was second with Iron Jaws, then Ed Harrison was Seraphon, then Liam Alford with Lumineth, Matthew Davis was Sylvaneth, and then there was Soulblight, Seraphon, Maggotkin, Seraphon. So AD Mac up there with Slaves. So it's quite a lot of. I was 34, just ticked on the end, but that has not got my paint score in, so it puts me up to, I think I'm 31st, I think he said, and I messaged him and he told me, but the tweet is before the amendment, and you were 37th, so I still end up finishing higher than you despite your higher paint and other scores. So
not really surprising given my gaming results.
No, but because you got conversions and stuff as well. I didn't get any of that because I just used stock models because I was like, well,
I got conversions because my opponent reminded Alex that my keeper is a conversion.
Yeah, because
actually no,
it almost looks like it's not converted, right?
Yeah, people missed it out the entire, which I'll take as a compliment.
Yeah, and so 71 players, which I'll just in case anyone's like cut off and they're like worried that they've been cut off, I'll just move the window so you can see it. There you go. So because it's just cut off on the bottom, but yeah, you can I mean it was fun, good event.
Solid event. Yeah,
it's just nice to play Warhammer after like 2 years of not playing Warhammer.
I had a great time. I'm doing games this weekend on Sunday. I think I'm going to do three, maybe even 3. So looking forward to it.
I've had a game in the week, but I couldn't use my OBR because Carl wanted to play them. So I played with my ogres to see how 30 Mortec with a harvester if they could take 4 Stonehorns, which was interesting. So
are you, having played with your OBR, do you now want to play with them again? Do you feel the need to like cool, I've got it a bit more, I want to carry on perfecting it? Or if you went to an event next weekend, what would you be like, or in like a month's time, let's say you have time to paint some time.
So
yeah,
I would probably want to be running. I'd probably drop one of the harvesters. I would probably want to upgrade one of the Mortec to Kavalos. To Death Riders.
Yeah.
So Kavalos Death Riders, and then I would quite like to. I don't really want to take a crawler. I would probably drop Gothizzar Cartouche, which is the +1 to wound artifact, and not be in Warlord.
Awkward. Yeah.
And be in Battle Regiment. Because
how low drops can you get?
1.
Okay.
Because basically you go Arcan, the 2 heroes, 5 units, and the harvester, and it's 1 drop.
How much of a deal is it not having Hunters of the Hearthlands for you?
That's the only thing I might do. I might do a 2-drop.
3-drop.
A 3-drop, sorry, yeah, and have Hunters of the Hearthland for the 2 Mortec, which is what I was about to say. So the 2 Mortec units are, hunted. But
I do think that has a benefit as well, because you can go 1 unit, other unit, and then you have you've got some information from your opponent before you.
To be perfectly honest with you, Monstrous Rampage doesn't do anything to you, because it doesn't stop you using your discipline abilities, because they're not command abilities, and it doesn't stop you. It doesn't stop you. You might take some mortal wounds, basically. So actually being in Hunters is irrelevant. I just think I'd rather just be a 1-drop.
Sure. Yeah, it's important.
And you just basically give up the turn every time.
I was going to say, so you can give up the first turn.
You go first, and then you're always on a chance to get a double, and you're never facing a double.
You got so much more reach with a unit of cavalry in there. I do.
It also means that the life swarm's not as important because you're not facing a double turn, so you don't need the healing out of sequence.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
The cavalry gives you a lot more reach. So I've been playing around with a list that was kind of what I wanted to run. But yeah, I mean, I would still play OBR at events. Like when we went into the event, it was like, what do I ideally want to do? And I think I said I wanted to be 3 and 2, and if it better would have been good. I think from better play, more experience with the army and what I was facing, I could have easily gone 4 and 1 or 5 and 0. I didn't feel like my army was that bad. I think I wrote the strongest OBR list I could, but I would probably make some significant changes based on the feedback based on what I faced, and just understanding what you're really gaining to try and min-max it a little bit more. I still would take OBR to tournaments. I don't see why. I know they might not be top tier, but I think they are very solid. The only thing about them that is a little bit, and I sort of talked about the Lumineth anti-play experience. If you've got a combat army, Mortec with stacking Mystic Shield with harvesters is almost as bad, Because although you can charge and roll dice, you don't kill anything, and they just grind you off.
That's very honest of you. Yeah, it's a bit.
It is, and like I know
it's a hard counter, isn't it?
When I played like Russ, he had a bad. If he combo charged me or played a little bit better, I think he could have beat me. If he charged like round and piled in, because I was out of position, I didn't play it very well. It was the first game, and then like, but Sean didn't really have a chance, and like. He was lower drops than me, so I had the choice. So that's why I felt more powerful having the choice, and that's one of the reasons. Like having less harvesters, less more tech, and more fast stuff probably feels less fair, less like
more flexible,
abusive.
less eggs in one basket, and you're making your army less rock paper scissors, because against melee it's better, but against others it's worse, so you end up in the middle and all of your opponents have a more varied play experience.
And if you play against like a combat army, the Kavalos can almost be your, and I obviously I know I'll get some heat for this way I say it, they can almost be your, you can kill these guys and feel like you've killed something, because my first 2 games I gave up 0 victory points.
Yeah,
like
but also you get to do
points.
that at further range, which is a
so you can,
to you.
But you can like put them out there, and you get the benefit of getting, they go in, they kill it, you countercharge, but they feel like they've killed something.
Yeah, absolutely. And whereas my Vanguard did the same thing. Whereas it was very useful.
Like playing a combat army, and at the end of the game you were toting up the scores, and because this was using kill points, which won't be a thing in most events, I don't think. It's like, how much did I kill? And you're like, well, 0. Literally killed nothing. Because with the healing and everything, it's just, you just not, unless you wipe something out. And I think in AOS, there's some armies you almost need to play against OBR like their Sons of Behemoth.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is go, I'm going to kill this unit. My whole army needs to go into it to kill it, but I'm going to kill this unit at 20 more tech.
It's going to feel bad for 2 turns and then potentially very good for the remaining 3.
Which is what Matthew did really well. He went, I'm going to kill that unit. Next turn, I'm going to kill that unit. This turn, I'm going to kill this unit. And he wasn't doing up a bit here, bit here, bit here, bit there. It was very concentrated. And when you play against Sons of Behemoth, you need to go, I need to kill a Mega Gargant. Everything's going into that one Mega Gargant. As soon as you spread your damage, you're putting yourself out at a disadvantage. And I think that you can a little bit, like if you go kill a harvester and a unit of something or what but you got to make sure you just kill it dead. Like if you leave Mortec alive and suddenly they're like, well, now I'm going to put 3 back in from Life Swarm, 3 back in from Life Swarm, 3 back in from Arcan, then I get another, you have a go, then I put another 3 back in. Suddenly there's 12 Mortec back that you never, that took you
36 turn to
kill, and then you've got to now do it again. It's soul destroying. So I think I would, and that's one of the reasons I wouldn't really want to run a catapult, because I think that's a bit of a feel bad for your opponent as well.
Yeah.
Because if you play someone like Skaven, it's like, oh, just wipe your unit out with it. It just feels really like OTT. You've got always that chance of running that high roll where you just nuke a character. But then at the same time, it's like, what do I do about Severith? And like, I think I just accept that in a lot of missions, I can just hold the objectives. It's only if I play that in a mission that has lots of objectives that it's a problem. But I would still run OBR. I think, I mean, maybe I've talked too much about it, but I think they're a solid army. So
that's what you'd take. You wouldn't take your Soulblight Gravelords or something.
Well, they're in boxes behind me. So if I had a choice, if I was like, right, you got to go to a tournament and you got to take the most competitive thing you can, and you could take Soulblight or OBR.
Yeah.
I would if hand on heart, I think the Soulblight Manfred list is better because it's similar. So like Graveguard are basically Mortec.
Yeah.
They're not as resilient, but they do way more damage.
More hitty, less resilient.
Yeah. And you go, well, the skeleton blob is like a unit of 20 more tech defensively because the amount there are, and I know they're not the same, but the point for point, they're not so bad. Similar. Manfred is I'm not going to get in trouble. He's a better Arcan in terms of his flexibility around the table.
Oh, completely.
The only thing that I would struggle with it is the fact you've got the Fellbats for Unleash Hell, which is another reason why I take Cavalry and OBR, but I don't think there's a lot in it. If you were going to say to me, like, is it like 80%? Are the Grave Lords like 20-30% better than the OBR? I don't think so. I think they're like 5% better.
Okay.
Because I actually think the new edition doesn't matter so much, your list disparity, because it's about the missions and flexibility around the battle tactics.
Or objective play, or how easy it is for you to get your grand strategies, or, anything like that.
And I think that any army that's constructed well can do that through good play. So I'm not that... It feels better than in AOS 2 that if I took like an army into AOS 2, that I was in a mismatch, like my Khorne versus Hallowheart. There's just no chance. Like
Nighthaunt versus Daughters or something.
And I think although I've beaten that, but yeah, it's an uphill struggle because the game's a lot more linear. It's like, did you win so killing the other person like more efficiently is generally a good way to win the game. Whereas my army, I mean, you can see from my victory point total. Look, my victory point total is like, it's not on here. Brilliant. All right, it might be on this sheet. So, where did I see it? I've read it somewhere. Anyway, I can't see it, but it wasn't very high. It was.
You'll have wrote it down each game. Oh, mine was like 1.5, 1.3, 1.522 or something.
Yeah, mine was like 500, 600.
Comms was similar.
I mean, I got one of the games I got like 1900, but most of the games I'm getting like less than 1,000 kill points because
I've got 60 one of those games, I think.
My army just doesn't kill stuff; it just wins on mission
objectives. Yeah,
and like, which is fine, and like this
event, subject of which,
but yeah, it's good. I mean, I think OBR is solid. But what about you, Slaanesh? Were you happy? I mean, obviously, I know you took a lot of concessions just from speed, but
I don't know. There's that many better options in the book, honestly. So, like, I would at some point in the near future, I hope and expect my army will get sorted out points wise. It just is what it is. We've made a decision for FACEHAMMER that they'll get slightly more points, which would make a huge difference actually. Anyone who's written Slaanesh lists knows what 2010 points in a perfect list feels like. So everything that you've just listed about your low tier army still having game up here, I don't want to try and give myself excuses for that's what I'm trying to do, but I just felt behind in every respect in every game. Like, not in options on the table, but in terms of managing things to do with winning the game, being objectives and grand strategies and stuff like that. God, shit me, it's hard. It is really hard. Like it's just starting off. Like I picked keep your battle line alive is a bad idea because it is. Even if you
put in wizard, because at least the epitomes like can dick about and
well, I did do it and it's hard, really hard. So one more wizard in there make a difference. So I'll touch on that in a second. But still, then you're not unless it's like glue toss makes a big difference. There is a completely different discussion about writing Slaanesh armies to win games on a, just to win games, period. Actually, doesn't need clarifying. To win games, which is done by objectives. And he is different and he changes things and he gives you an obvious option or an Archeon list. Both of those, they just handle that in the way that having a Nagash list handles that. But Slaanesh need it more than OBR or Soulblight Gravelords do. So if you want to go to an event and win with Slaanesh, be prepared to dip into slaves, but most importantly, like, prioritize that above and beyond anything else that make the rest of it fit, would be my advice to people. My army felt tiny every game. My army felt minuscule, and my opponents thought it was minuscule.
I think that's the other problem with Slaanesh is that, like, your resilience, because if you've got a low tier army and it's resilient, it's not so bad. So like OBR are particularly resilient. So when you've got a lower tier army and it's not resilient, it's even worse, right? It's like,
it's really good for learning. Like that. I'll put that right up there. I think I will get better faster with this. I can't think of many other things that will teach me as fast as this will to be a better player, which is what I'm after. So that's a huge plus, but I don't think I'm going to do that by winning games very often. In all honesty, I felt like I was playing about 1,800 or 1,850 points. I'd say that's how it felt. You're not particularly superior at anything other than having some stuff that moves fast, but there's other stuff that moves faster or things that Stormcast or Table Edges or whatever. Quite a lot of armies have got that these days. So yeah, Sigvold was great. He was awesome. He got back more than his points and affected the board a lot and directed a lot of attention towards him, which I need, because then it's not directed against the rest of my army.
Did you find the Keeper and Sigvold combo come up enough to warrant spending 400 points on that hero?
So if I'm not spending 400 points on that hero, they have to be spent on Glutos, I think. And that's a different type of list. Yeah, and that's a different type of list, because if I don't have that wizard, I've just got the epitome. And then what am I doing? I'm picking battle line or something dreadful. Yeah, or there's the Gargant debate as well. That in exactly the same way that you can have the Glutos debate. Yeah, you do have Sinessa and stuff, but for this type of list, it helped me kill Gotrek. I couldn't have the option without that. It gives me game against Mega Gargants, which I think is a thing you have to play around these days, because they are there and they are good, and you probably will face them. If you go to 3 events, you'll face them, 1, 2, or maybe
you need
3
spike
games.
damage, don't you, to kill a Mega?
Yeah, you do. And also, he ignores after saves, and getting to do that twice is enough to mull your way through a couple of things. I do think there is a discussion to be had about the spells and making someone always strike to last, or some other stuff like that. There's also, you don't need Lurid Haze, but it is still a very good option. It used to be the obvious option by a mile. I don't think that's the case at all anymore. Okay, Godseekers, not being forced to not take the 5-up ward on the Keeper, that's a big deal. Putting it on her makes a huge difference. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I felt behind, and like I had a tiny army in all of my games, actually. I'm not going to stop playing them. I would and will take them to the next event that I go to, and I will continue trying to get back with them. I didn't feel I had non-games, but I think if I faced some of the armies that Russ had faced, I would have felt like I had non-games.
I think those last 3 armies I faced were tough.
Yeah, I think I would have just got picked to pieces, basically. But it wouldn't have been a unit a turn. It would have been 2/3 units a turn dead.
Yeah. But that's why I think something like, if you take like Matt's army, I mean, forget the scenario, but if you're playing in a less one-sided scenario, like Sinessa is like, I could pick Sever if it's 24 dice on a 5-up, and with Pavane, there's no range. Taking mortals, it's just such a good way of killing him. You've got stuff. But then
they still put the archers forward and wipe out my list, though.
I don't. But if you've got like Glutos and you've got like Sigvold and an Alpha Strike and stuff, I don't know, because I think Glutos can take it. You could just run up the middle of the table and just be like, because it's what I said about you. You've got the distance of speed to set up very far back, but then still affect turn 1, which was the difference. It's what Matt did. He deployed basically on his baseline. Whereas a lot of people,
Lurid Haze lets you do that and still affect them.
And I think that like you've got that option. Whereas like with the OBR, I kind of have to tuck it. I have to just basically be in the middle and go blob up and take it. And that's why I kind of want the Cav, because it gives me that turn 1 option.
I've always loved them. I've never written an OBR list without them.
Because if you're playing against someone, they're also really good for Unleash Hell pinning, right? So
I hate playing against them. If I see an OBR list with 5 Cav in it, I treat it completely differently to any other OBR list. I really don't like facing them with any of my armies I've ever played. So the Glutos list, I think there's an argument for putting 10 Chaos Warriors in that as well, which again completely changes the type of army it is. But
still think Twin Souls are a good shout.
Yeah.
Just can't fit it all.
There's a load of options, and you can fit like two less things than you'd like.
Are you basically saying then back to the drawing board with your list? Because if you've played what I played, or you're just going to suck it up till December?
I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to get better at playing with my list. And if come December points don't change majorly, I'll drop them and never play them.
Okay. I think
it's a bit sad, but just it would be stupid if they don't. Like something's wrong, and I'm playing them in the confidence that things will get evened out at some point, because they're just so ridiculously overpriced. So hopefully I get rewarded for playing at handicap for a bit, and we'll see. I will probably also drop out a unit of Vanguard for 1 unit of Knights and 1 Chaos Sorcerer, which will give me 1 more Wizard. Even if it's not a particularly resilient one, it is 1 more. and that'll push the grand strategy a little bit more in my favor. And then, small margins make a big difference. So
yeah, 100%.
That'll be quite a good take. That would be 2-drop, but I think that is okay because so many people are taking hunters, and you'd be a bit mad not to. That I think 2 is fairly safe.
Yeah, and that's, I think, like, for me, I think I could play OBR competitively. I think I'd struggle to win an event or podium an event, but I think I could easily go 4-1 most events. And I think with enough play and a little bit more flexibility in my army, I think there wouldn't be an awful lot that I would struggle with. Lumineth would be a bit of an Achilles heel if it was built a certain way, but I might just to chunk that up depending on how popular they get.
The obscure stuff, you really wouldn't want to face like super heavy shooting 1-drops, basically, which is a very small part of the game. Whether it's a mortal wound battery or
it's mortal wounds is the problem.
9 storm fiends or KO or something. It's
just mortal wounds. Like you don't care about anything unless it does mortals. Like that's fundamentally how it is, because especially when you've got a more flexible fast list, but if you've got can dictate the turn, like it's only
that's why I said the 1-drops.
Yeah. But then I would be a 1-drop too. So like it's 50-50
pushing those odds. Yeah.
But even if they and I'd probably even give them the turn. So go on then, because I don't. Depending on the mission, like if Arcan could be protected, then like I'm not fussed.
Yeah.
There is an argument as well for me putting in Burning Head, which is the mortal wound shot, and then it goes.
Gets rid of itself, doesn't it?
Because actually, I think sometimes it's good to do that. The Bone Type Shrieker is immense. I wouldn't drop that. Didn't need the second artifact. Didn't ever need the extra Relentless Discipline. That might change if they change it in the FAQ. But yeah, we'll see. But that's it. I guess this is a kind of an event coverage. Is a bit sorry the pictures aren't all there. And
we'll get some better pictures next time.
The videos, but I've interlocked the videos that Byron's recorded. I didn't really take many. Time was an issue at the event, I think. FACEHAMMER GT just has arrived at 11/12. Tickets go on sale on Friday the 13th, 10 o'clock from the Element Games web store. Link will be in the description. And, you can support us on Patreon, all that kind of stuff. We've got a live show this weekend. This video might be out after that because thinking about it, it's Friday now. And then by the time it's edited and scheduled, then it'll probably be live. I might do them back to back or something crazy because fuck it.
Do that, yeah.
But so, we'll see you again soon, and thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know below, and more to come.
Yeah, catch you in the next episode, guys. See you in a bit.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.